All right, we are live. Okay, so how's it going, everyone? This is Imperial 2K20 back with the Team Cola podcast, and I have a special guest with us today, and that is Usagi. So, welcome to the podcast. So,
Hi everyone.
yeah, so how have you been? You doing good?
I'm pretty good.
That's good.
hmm How have you been?
Yeah, doing okay. I will admit, it's like the night's sleep was not the greatest, but it was
Oh
okay.
no.
It was okay though. I've been used to it many times when it comes to doing like any sort of collab streams or podcast stuff. Like I sort of get to this stage where I'm like sort of doing the last minute checks all the time going, okay, is everything 100%? Is everything good to go? And sometimes you kind of get that anxiousness that things are going to go wrong. But I think this time we've got it pretty good. I think we got it pretty good this time. And I think so. Yeah, like it was not the worst sleep. It was okay overall. But yeah, like compared to other podcast episodes, like this one has probably been one of the easier ones to set up and have ready because this time like I sort of tried to do a lot of stuff much earlier and have a lot of stuff planned much quicker. But yeah, so we got stuff in order, I think. So yeah, so hopefully everyone's doing well and hopefully everyone's having a good day or evening, whatever time it is for everyone. Like for me, it is currently 10:27 in the morning. So
Wow.
yeah, and the best part is with my overlay, I can actually show the time, my local time on screen. So you guys can see what time it is for me, which is interesting. So, yeah, I think there's been a lot of interesting gaming stuff coming out in the last, I think, few weeks. So there's a lot we could talk about games, and we can even talk a bit about Usagi yourself. Um, but yeah, it's also the first time I've been IRL self for a little while on stream. So, so if some of you guys don't know, I have transitioned to being more of a VTuber. So it's interesting for me to pull out the webcam again. But I know for some it's probably a lot more difficult to be doing webcam streams, and that's why as well VTubing can be another good option, like because you can still have some kind of personality even if you don't feel comfortable being on screen. So yeah, but I think
Especially
oh yeah, you can go.
Oh sorry.
That's all good.
Especially with like expressions and full like head turns and body turns and
Yeah,
toggles. It's insane. Like I've seen people like buy iPhones on eBay just for the toggles for their
yeah,
models. It's so cool.
yeah, it's really cool. Like I think like it's interesting because so far, like I think so far every podcast episode I've done so far has been a VTuber of some kind. So it's really interesting for me because like a lot of my friends online have been VTubers, or at least have been leaning towards the VTuber sort of aspect in most ways. So it's really interesting just seeing that, like, how far VTubing has come since it first sort of came around. Like, I remember when I first started streaming, VTubing was, I think, still kind of niche for the most part. Like, it was still relatively like Japanese focused, but was slowly starting to come into the West. And you'd already had some VTubers like some of the big ones like Project Melody and the V Shoujo VTubers popping into the scene. And now we've just seen a huge explosion in the last year or so of so many like indie VTubers, and it's so cool. Like it's just really cool to see how far it's come from being, I guess, probably something that was a bit more expensive to start off with, but now becoming a lot more affordable for a lot of people to do. So, yeah, like especially because like you can like sort of make your own models, you can do all sorts of cool stuff. But I think one thing I'd want to ask is, I guess to kind of open up the VTubing door a little bit, is how did you get your start in VTubing and what made you want to do it? Like that's something I'd really be interested to know. And I think a lot of people would be interested probably to know like where'd you get that start?
So it was technically 2 years ago. It was
Okay.
December 2020.
Hmm.
20, no, 2021? No, it was, yes, it was December like 2020-ish.
Okay.
And I was always interested in the idea of streaming,
Okay.
and but I wasn't sure how to come across it. And
Yeah.
so I looked into streamers and I came across um just like VTubing in general, like VTubing
Right.
subreddit and things like that. And I was like, what even is that? Like that sounds kind of cool. I want to be an anime girl. And so
Yeah.
I I was mostly inspired by Aikuzuna.
Okay. I'm
Like
not
I
sure if
always
I've
thought
heard of
her
them.
she she was considered to be one of like the first. She has like longish brown hair.
Okay.
She was originally like just doing like funny meme videos from what I've
Right.
seen at first. And then she started doing idol stuff and
Right.
she released like not a graduation video but like more of like a hiatus, like I'm taking a
Okay.
break video somewhat recently. And
Right.
so it's just crazy how much like YouTubing has grown over the years, but
Yeah.
like from that to, because she's 3D and now
Right.
there's 2D and
Yeah.
PNGs, like that's just so cool.
Yeah. It's really interesting how like the VTubing space has kind of like opened up to many different sort of styles of VTubers, like PNG, 2D, 3D, like and you've even got like some of these like chibi models and all these cool things. It's really cool to see. So yeah, like I think I've said sort of in a few different podcasts, like where I sort of found where I first found VTubing. Like I think most people tend to sort of look at like Kizuna AI as like one of the first VTubers, but like I never saw that at first. I never saw Kizuna AI as like a VTuber at first because I didn't really know much about VTubing. So I was just like, oh, that's cool. And then eventually I heard about Hololive and stuff, but I didn't know much about it yet. So I was like, oh, okay. But then when VTubing hit like the Western markets, I was like, oh, okay, this is VTubing? What's this? But the first VTuber I ended up finding was Project Melody. And like I heard a lot of different stuff at the time because like Project Melody broke a certain website, which I can't name here, but broke a certain website basically when debuting, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So is this what this VTubing thing is? And then I suddenly found a bunch of other VTubers and got into the scene from there, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like maybe I might do this someday, and now I'm doing the PNG streams. But yeah, it's really interesting to see how far VTubing has come in, I guess, what can be probably a short period of time. So yeah, like so many doors opened and so many different possibilities when it comes to just creating content in different ways. So yeah, and there's been a lot of like obviously over time, I think we've all sort of seen. if we're all in the VTubing community in some sort of way, whether we follow it or whether we are in it in being a VTuber, we do see like a lot of, I guess, a lot of things sort of come up like dramas, and I think it happens for any community. But yeah, it's kind of crazy how, because of how large the scene I think has gotten, it's more open to the, I guess, the bad stuff that comes from any community. So I sort of want to know, like, I guess, when, I guess, like, I don't know, it's a weird way to phrase the question, but like, I guess, when you sort of joined the community, did you expect to see, I guess, any of that sort of drama and stuff, or did you kind of, I guess, maybe not expect it, like after a certain period of time? Like,
To be honest, I kind of did expect it,
hmm,
because I had seen I used to be a cosplayer,
yeah,
um, and I wasn't like super popular, but not like 10K followers or anything like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
But I was kind of like known a little bit locally, but so
okay,
was like several other people, and so I after VTubing for about like maybe 6 or 7 months, I
yeah,
discovered that a lot of the cosplayers, like it was very common for cosplayers to become VTubers,
okay,
especially during the pandemic when
yeah,
cons weren't really running anymore.
yeah,
Um, and so I expected drama from there
yeah,
because there was a lot of drama, like you said,
yeah,
when there's like a huge growing of the amount of people in that community, there tends to be drama and
yeah,
crazy stuff going on, and so that's why I
yeah,
expected it, but then surprisingly, it I didn't really come across it,
yeah.
so I was like relieved.
Yeah, like I think it was probably about maybe 6, 7, 8 months in, I guess, to following VTubers in the community that I suddenly found the drama. Like I kept hearing about it for so long, like people talking about it, like saying, "Oh, hey, like, did you know this is going on or that's going on?" And I'm just like, "No, I never heard about any of that stuff." And then suddenly, because I think more people go into the community, and because you sort of start following more creators, you start hearing about it, and it's like, oh wow, okay, what's going on here? But yeah, and I think it's like there's definitely a lot of issues in the community and every other sort of community out there that do tend to need to be raised, but there's also a lot of things that you sort of go, man, like that could have just been, that could have stayed private, like that could have just stayed out of the public view, because there's a lot of things that don't need to be in the public view, at least in my opinion. But I sort of just kind of look at it and try and breeze past it if it's something that's like really minuscule and like something that's not even like majorly important to talk about, because it's just some petty sort of drama. So I just kind of just breeze past it and kind of go on with my day. But I do definitely sometimes see some of the stuff that kind of comes in the feed and I go, man, that's like a really big issue. Like, there's all these things that will pop up, and you go, man, I've got to make people aware of that in some sort of way. But yeah, it's like, I think it's just the way that some people manage it, like, that needs to change, maybe. Like, and that goes for any community, that's not just the VTubing community. But yeah, like, I think we just have to be overall, I guess, as people, a bit more civil and a bit more constructive on some of these things and point it out where it needs to be pointed out. But
Definitely.
yeah, like I kind of just wanted to ask that because I'm kind of like just sort of going like, hey, like there's many things that pop up in any different community, and like how do some people deal with these things, and like did we expect that sort of stuff to happen? And Like I've heard like that Twitter can be the toxic place for a lot of these things, but I didn't see it for a long time. So I was not really aware for a long time myself that some of these things were going on. But it just it just happens. It's life, but at the same time we need to call it out where it needs to be called out, and at the same time we need to be more civil in some situations, like when it comes to these things. But yeah, so moving on to a bit more of a lighter sort of topic because I kind of wanted to address a bit of a balance of different things that we might experience. But I guess video games, like what sort of video games do you like to play? Is there any particular genre that you prefer playing, or any particular systems you like playing? Like, what sort of video games do you like?
I I don't know if I could consider myself a Nintendo fan
Okay.
person, but
Yeah.
I do mostly like Nintendo stuff.
Okay.
I mostly like puzzle games
Hmm.
and things like that. So usually like I lean towards Zelda because there's like tons of puzzles within the dungeons
Okay.
and even things um like when I first got my DS, I had played Professor Layton and I was
Okay.
like, I love this. I love all these puzzles.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's like I think for me for video games, like it's like I sort of like telling, I guess, my life story when it comes to video games, but it's like when I was, I guess, much younger, like the first game system I ever owned was a Nintendo GameCube, and I was like, yes, this was, I guess, one of the. I think this was at the time when Nintendo still somewhat cared about, I guess, competing with Sony and Microsoft, and obviously had games like Super Mario Sunshine, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Animal Crossing. Like you had all these games, and my dumb self, when I was 6 years old, decided no, I want to get rid of that. So I ended up getting rid of my GameCube with all my games and got a
Oh my
PS2.
god.
And I mean, yeah, PS2, good console, good console with a lot of good games because like best selling in the generation and everything. But just throwing away a GameCube, not realizing at the time how valuable GameCube games would be in the future and how valuable these systems would be. Like it sort of after a while it sort of made me realize like when I was like 12, 13, when I started actually collecting video games again and stuff, to be like, man, I should have kept my GameCube when I was 6 years old. But yeah, now I have a GameCube again, but I don't have all the games that I
Yay.
used to have. And I'm just really frustrated by that because it's like GameCube games are so expensive now. At least where I am, they're so expensive to come by. And it just sucks so much because like video games here, I think in my opinion, cost too much already. Like Australians end up paying probably about like $90 for a video game. It's it's crazy. Like $90
Oh man.
for a full price AAA game. And if you want deluxe editions and stuff, it's like 100 or $110. So it's not cheap to come by. And then you got the systems on top and everything. You're getting like into the territory of spending thousands. Well, probably not thousands, but like if you want like a good couple
100.
games and a console, probably a $1,000 straight off the bat, probably.
Oh my
And
goodness.
yeah, it's crazy. And yeah, and then GameCube games, anytime I go around and I find GameCube games, like especially some of the more rarer games to come by, like Mario Kart Double Dash and all that sort of stuff, like people are selling them for like 80, $90 straight off the bat for just a copy of Double Dash. And I'm just like really? Like am I gonna go spending that much money for old games? Like as much as they're quality games and they're hard to come by, Am I going to go spend 80 or $90, basically the price of a full price game of today, just for a classic game from the 2000s or even earlier? Like it's it's a hard thing to weigh up because like as much as you could go buy the consoles, like and you tend to find the consoles for most of the time somewhat cheaper than the games. Like it's it's crazy. Like I've just been lucky. Like when I was in my teenage years, I was lucky to go find some of these consoles when they were still a bit more affordable on the market because I ended up getting like a used GameCube. I ended up getting like the Mega Drive and a few other consoles, and it was so good back then. But now it's like getting a Dreamcast now is harder than 10 years ago. Like 10 years ago, I would have had an easier time buying a Dreamcast. But that's just the thing with like retro games. Like it's hard to come by some games, and if you want to collect for certain systems, like you've got to be prepared for how much that's going to cost to collect for. But the life of retro game collecting.
It's
But yeah,
tough.
but yeah, I don't know what differences there would be in the US when it comes to like retro games, but I do hear some people seem to have it a bit easier in some parts. But
It depends.
yeah,
Um, Most people here are savages when it comes to selling.
yeah,
Like, I'm in a Nintendo enthusiast group on Facebook,
okay.
and I mentioned this to one of my friends today, and
Hmm.
someone was selling a cardboard cutout for Mario Kart Double Dash
Oh wow.
for 575 US dollars. I was
Oh
like,
wow.
bro, that's just cardboard.
Yeah, it's cardboard, and like what? Okay, like if it's in mint condition, even then, I'm not going to spend $500 on cardboard. Like, okay, maybe $50 if it's a really good cardboard cutout, or $100 maybe. Because, but like $500, like man, like that's that's crazy for like a Mario Kart Double Dash cardboard cutout. Like, I have a friend who I actually was talking to and was hanging out with yesterday, and he loves collecting retro games. Like he was one of my friends that helped me get into retro game collecting a bit, and he collects a bunch of systems like to Atari to everything. Like I go to his house and he's got like a whole room just full of retro game stuff, like Atari games, Sega games, Nintendo games, and he's even got some of the more rarer like demo units for like the original Xbox and all those sorts of things. And
Wow.
I was like, man, like I just really wish that I could have a big room like that. I really wish I could just have a big gaming room with a bunch of retro games. But I mean, like I've got a bit of a collection. Like I've got GameCube and PS2, and I've even got like I guess some of the more OG consoles like Nintendo 64 and stuff. But just collecting games can be really hard. Like, because in Australia, I think one of the big differences, at least with the console market compared to the US in the 80s and 90s, was like in Australia, like in the 80s and 90s, like Sega was the top dog. Like everyone wanted Sega consoles, like the Master System, and then eventually the Mega Drive slash Genesis was more successful here. So everyone wanted those consoles. And Nintendo was like the second rate sort of thing. But when it came to PlayStation, everyone was on board with PlayStation. So like Nintendo had always been, I guess, the second best in the console market here until I guess the Nintendo Wii and the Nintendo Switch probably. But like everyone was still playing Mario and stuff, but everyone was still raving on about Sega. So yeah, like it's a very different contrast to the US market where everyone was I guess, the Nintendo sort of guy or person, like in general, like growing up. Everyone wanted to play Mario until, I guess, the Genesis came along and sort of had that competitiveness in the market. But
I've seen a lot of people say that the thing that really killed Sega, at least like I don't know if this was worldwide or just the US, was
yeah,
Microsoft in general.
yeah, I
Like
think
Nintendo was pretty high up there.
yeah, like Nintendo has always, even in the Australian market, has been very high up, and I think like with Sega, like I think the main thing that really kind of killed Sega was the Sega Saturn, I think, because the Sega Saturn did not do well in Australia at all, I can say that. And I know in the US market it didn't really do that well either, because Sony came in with the PlayStation and Sony had the upper hand with a lot of things. Like you had the third party developers kind of trusting Sony, even though they were probably a bit skeptical at first because Sony was a newcomer. Like, but Sony had, I think, all the right cards in place, whereas Sega was kind of battling it out between the Japan and US branches to kind of see where they were going. Because apparently, and this is like from what people have kind of just said, like I can't validate any of it, but I can say that apparently Sega of Japan had a lot of control over every decision made. So so Sega of America, even though they wanted to do different things, Sega of Japan had the higher up sort of, I guess, authority to tell them yes or no. So when it came to the success with the Genesis in the US, Sega of Japan kind of let them just go, okay, we'll let you handle that. But then when the Sega Saturn came around, Sega of Japan was kind of saying a bunch of different things to Sega of America, kind of telling them, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that. So Sega of America kind of suffered because of that. And that's, I think, what led to Sega's kind of downfall, at least in the US market. Because in the Japanese market, uh, the Sega Saturn was pretty successful. It actually did quite well there. And then the US market was where a lot of the money was coming from. So Sega of Japan, I think, probably thought, oh, we've done this right. We've got everything. Here's here's what we want you to do next. When Sega of America was kind of not getting the credit for what they had achieved in the US market. Like the Sega Saturn didn't have a main Sonic title, which a lot of people had hoped would happen. Never happened. Then the Sega Saturn was priced $100 more than the PlayStation, so
Hmm.
that kind of put them a bit off. And at the I think this is at the first E3 actually, from what I remember hearing about. Apparently, Sega announced the Sega Saturn, and then afterwards, Sony had their press conference, and they announced the PlayStation and the price $299, and everyone was like just clapping. Everyone was literally just clapping and going, "Wow, Sony's got the upper hand on everything here." And also Sega coming out and kind of going, "Hey, the Sega Saturn's out now." And it's like, "Wait, hold on. You didn't tell your third-party developers that the Sega Saturn was coming out that day."
Oh.
Yeah. Like Sega was originally meant to release the Sega Saturn, I think around September 1995 or something, but they decided, no, let's announce it and say it's out that day. And it's threw off a bunch of third party developers kind of going, whoa, what? Hello, when did this happen? So, so the Sega Saturn launched with barely any games and nothing to back it until the holiday season, thinking they could get the lead, but they just screwed up really badly by announcing it, having a higher price than the PlayStation, and throwing all their third party developers under the bus and not telling them what's going on. So
That's
So
That's so
that's
crazy.
yeah. Imagine it's like imagine if Microsoft came out with the Series X. Imagine when they announced the Series X and Series S. I think they did it um back in 2019 at the Game Awards. They showed off the trailer for the Series S and Series X. Imagine if they came out there and said, "Hey, it's out now." Like I think a lot of people would be really thrown off and going, "What?" Like a bunch of third party developers, if they weren't told about it, they would have gone, "Hey, we haven't got these games ready yet. What's going on?" Like,
I was honestly a bit surprised with the Switches, the Nintendo Switch, like their success. I
yeah,
was kind of surprised because the Wii U, which was the previous console, did
yeah,
not do so well. And then the Switch comes out, and there was barely any games.
yeah.
But
I
I think
remember
the
that.
thing that really like helped them was Breath of the Wild. It
Yes,
was basically Skyrim and Zelda combined,
yeah. I think
which excited a lot of people.
yeah. Like I when the Switch was first announced, I think I was actually 16 at the time when the Switch was first announced, and I remember talking about it in high school, and I was saying to people, "Hey, this looks pretty good. Like, it looks promising. It looks like it's got a lot of cool stuff with it." People were sort of speculating how powerful it was going to be, and I was sort of going, "Oh yeah, this will probably be somewhat close to like PS4, Xbox One specs, probably." And in the end, it was still pretty close. It couldn't match them, but it was still close. And the price when they announced it, I was like, oh, okay, that might be okay. That might not be. But when they announced that they were having Breath of the Wild day one, I was like, okay, this will help the Switch on day one. And I got the system day one. And that was the first system I ever got day one. But people were like selling me probably about a month or two before, oh, it's going to fail. It's going to be worse than the Wii U. They'll have to leave the console market. And I'm like, I mean, Nintendo would still have money even even after if the Wii if even if the Switch failed, Nintendo would still have a lot of money saved to go one last time or more. So they could have another failed system after the Switch and probably be okay financially. But I sort of said, okay, I don't expect it to fail, but I didn't expect it to be as successful as it is. I sort of expected it to be maybe like probably get to like 50 million units or something and then kind of just end there. But no, it's way past that. It's I think now edging into like over 105 million or something, which is
Wow.
insane. Like that's like the success of the Wii already. And it's been probably 5 years now, but I don't even think the Wii got to 100 million in 5 years. So it's outpaced the Wii in terms of sales, and it kind of blows my mind that it's been able to do that. But yeah, like I think that overall Nintendo had a really good success so far with the Switch, and I think they'll keep going with the Switch for probably another 3 years or so. But I'm
That's
so I'm
that's
sort
what
of
they were planning.
speculating. Yeah, they're planning to like make it last like a decade, and it's like, okay, that's cool, but what's coming next? What are they gonna do next? Are they gonna do another Switch that's more powerful and bigger storage and more games and all that sort of stuff, or are they gonna go back to something more traditional console esque? I guess because I don't know where they're gonna go. Like I'm imagining they'll do something like the Switch again, but what's to say that that's going to work a second time around though? Like that's what worries me. It's like is it going to work a second time around if they make a Switch 2 essentially? Like
That's what's really interesting about. video games in general,
Mm,
you'll have people who are like, I want the old stuff back.
yeah,
But then when something is back, they're like, these people are so uncreative. They can't come up
yeah,
with a new idea. But it's like, but I thought you wanted the old stuff again.
yeah, yeah. Like I think, like I've always kind of had the mindset of going, man, I would love to have Sega back. I would love to have Sega back in the console market, but I know it's not going to happen. Like people have been saying for over 20 years, oh yeah, Sega will come back. Uh, no, Sega won't come back to the console market. Maybe unless they had a drastic change in leadership or merged with another company that does hardware and stuff, maybe they would go back and sort of say, hey, here's some Sega branded console stuff. But I don't think it will happen. Like, Sega's kind of doing much better as a third party developer than as a console manufacturer. So, yeah, like, Sega won't come back. But people try and make that argument because Atari came back. But Atari came back because they just were kind of a bit dumb. They were kind of a bit dumb and were kind of like, oh yeah, see, remember we were the guys that made the Atari 2600 and we came back with the Atari Jaguar. Yeah. Not the best track record with a console, and the consoles that came after the 2600 weren't really that great either. Like, yeah, you could say, hey, the Atari, like, what was that, 5400 and other things. Like, yeah, okay, they were kind of there, but they didn't really succeed. Like, I think after the 7200 came out, I think Atari should have just sort of ended it there and gone, okay, let's make third party games. Maybe they would have had a better time. But yeah, like there's been many different console manufacturers over the period of time. Like you've had SNK with the Neo Geos, and you've had many different things. But I would love to see a change in the competition. I would love to see another big company kind of get into the ring and sort of say, hey, we want to compete against Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. But I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Like, it's it's not going to really happen. Like we've had the same three for like over 20 years now. So I don't think we're going to see really any new competitors. It's not like the 80s and 90s where the console market was like the Wild West kind of thing, where anyone could jump in and sort of compete. Like, and it kind of does suck sometimes because kind of having the console market as the Wild West sometimes was kind of cool because you could see many different competitors. But I don't think we're gonna see it for a while. Like maybe unless one of the top dogs kind of drops and goes, whether that's Sony, Microsoft, or Nintendo. If one of them drops, maybe yeah, we might see a new player. But I don't know. I think Nintendo is kind of solid where they are. Microsoft and Sony are solid where they are. Who's gonna be able to jump in and take any sort of market share from them? Like I don't know who.
That'd be that'd be really difficult considering how
Yeah,
much they have,
yeah,
all the
it's
IPs.
yeah. Unless like the only I think the only companies I could see do it is like I know that the Steam Deck came out pretty recently in some countries. Like the Steam Deck it looks to be a pretty good competitor to the Switch. So maybe Valve might be able to carve up a little tiny bit there, but I don't see them knocking Nintendo out with the Switch. There's no way that's going to happen. Like maybe Valve could be a little bit of a viable competitor in that sort of race, but I don't see them taking out Nintendo and just running and going, "Yeah, we've got the success now." Maybe they'll be successful alongside the Switch, maybe. But they're not going to get any numbers like the Switch. But Valve would be the only viable competitor in that space, and then getting a newcomer into the home console market, which technically Nintendo's in multiple markets with just the one product, which is kind of weird to think. But like trying to get in that space, I don't see any company at the moment that could do it unless it's like Google or someone. But I don't think they have any plans to make a home console. I don't think Google or Apple or anyone have plans to make a home console anytime soon. So,
That's Google might be viable. I mean, I
yeah.
was honestly surprised when they started making phones. Same with
Yeah.
Razer. I mean, Razer's phones didn't go so well, but Google Pixel phones blew up a little.
Yeah. So
It'd be
maybe
interesting to see them.
so maybe Google might be somewhat, I guess, of a competitor, but even then, they would have to like knock out Sony and Microsoft in some way. They would have to knock them down quite a bit and kind of go, "Hey, we have a Google console." And if I see a Google console, I would probably go, I don't know what I would think of it. I would kind of just be like, "Okay, what's the specs? What's the price? What sort of services are you offering for online? And are they going to have any physical media? Probably not. So it's probably going to be a digital only console. And then what third party developers are going to support this thing and what exclusive IPs would they have? I don't think they would have any exclusive IPs, really. So even then,
That's the tough part.
yeah, because you would have to have established IPs. Like if Sega suddenly turned around and said, "Hey, we're gonna make exclusive stuff for this Google console," I would be like, "Oh, okay, maybe there's some good stuff there," but I don't think that would be enough for me to turn around and go, "Oh yeah, I'm investing into this Google console." I would need like a lot of reasons why it would be good to invest in a Google console if they made one. Like there's like they've got like they would have to have exclusive games to back the system if they made one. And even then, it's going to be tough for them to kind of come out the gate and get success. But if anyone could do it, it would probably be Google, even though Google to me would probably stuff it up, probably. Like, because like we look at I think Google had some sort of cloud streaming thing for a little while that they've had out, and then no, everyone's kind of forgotten about it. Like I've already forgotten what it was even called. Like
I
they
haven't
had
even heard of it.
yeah, they had some kind of cloud streaming service that they wanted to like stream games with, and I remember hearing about it back in 2020, but then after that, I kind of haven't heard anything. So I'm kind of like, okay, maybe Google kind of failed on that because I've already forgot what it was even called. And I can't even remember how much it was or anything. Like, all I knew was that me and one of my co-workers at the time, we were talking about this thing and he was like wanting to test it out, but it was not available in the Australian market. So we were like, oh, okay, well, that kind of ruins that idea of testing it out and seeing what it can do. And even then, the Australian market probably would be one of the worst places to try and test it because of our crappy internet here. But I mean, like, if Google put their mind to it, maybe they could crack the console market and come out with a good system. But even then, they're not gonna they're not gonna get rid of any of the competition. They're more so going to, I guess, kind of just be alongside the competition and maybe carve up a little bit from it. But I don't. I think people would just kind of put them as like the fourth place sort of console, and that would be it. They wouldn't get the success that Sony or Microsoft or Nintendo would get. But
That's what's pretty unfortunate about all these, like the big three purchasing so many IPs
yeah,
because Like with Microsoft purchasing Ubisoft, like it
Oh
was
yeah,
like they had
they
so much.
yeah, oh yeah, like Microsoft purchased like a bunch of studios, and I could kind of see why they were doing it. Like, they obviously felt that they didn't have enough, like, I guess, IPs to kind of work with to make the Xbox brand competitive against PlayStation, because, like, they had like lots of good stuff, but they didn't have like a lot of big name exclusives to kind of back themselves enough against PlayStation. So they kind of went around, purchased a bunch of smaller development teams and studios at first, and then they sort of made some of the big purchases like Bethesda, and I think they also recently got Activision Blizzard. And when it with Activision Blizzard, I was kind of like, wait, what? They purchased Activision Blizzard? Like, that's like insane. Like, I mean, like, yeah, Activision Blizzard's been having a lot of issues in recent years. So I kind of was like, okay, well, Microsoft currently at the moment would be one of the best places to help them out and kind of, I guess, fix up what's going on in Activision Blizzard. But at the same time, Sony looked at that, I think, and kind of went, oh, maybe we need to purchase some big studios. And now I think Sony's kind of in that sort of, I guess, sort of position where they're kind of on the edge of their seat, kind of going, okay, Microsoft's kind of just made these big moves. We need to make a big move. So now they've purchased some smaller studio. I can't remember what they were called. And then they've also now kind of been trying to rework their PlayStation Plus sort of subscriptions and stuff to kind of fall more into line with what Microsoft is doing with Game Pass. So I guess it's kind of helping Sony be a bit more pro consumer, but at the same time, it's probably making the console market more, not just the console market, but the gaming market more of this big sort of, I guess, monopoly between the big three purchasing up all the studios. Or at least that's what it would be in the future. So,
It it's nice for the smaller companies to be bought out, but at the
yeah.
same time, those IPs get bought out and then they just don't do anything with them.
Yeah.
Like when was the last Rayman game?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
Ubisoft. Where is that? Like, I know Ubisoft and Nintendo have like a really, I guess, kind of close relationship in recent years. So that makes me wonder if Nintendo might think about wanting to purchase Ubisoft in the future. Which I know
I
Nintendo is
think
not really
Microsoft
like, like Nintendo is not really the type, I guess, to kind of go around and purchase big studios like Microsoft and Sony, but I feel like they will kind of eventually succumb to the same thing and kind of go, okay, let's buy Ubisoft and let's have these games on Nintendo platforms. And there's been a lot of rumors for a long time surrounding like Microsoft and Sega, because a lot of people are saying that Microsoft is going to snatch up Sega at some point and purchase them. And I mean, that would probably be a good purchase, actually. As much as I don't like seeing Sega be purchased out or anything, I feel like that would be a good purchase because Microsoft has been wanting to crack the Japanese market for a long time and has struggled to do so for a long time. So, purchasing a big brand like Sega would actually be beneficial to the Xbox in Japan. So, having Sega games like exclusive on Xbox might be a good thing and might give Sega the resources they need to better utilize the current IPs they're using. But also, Microsoft, I find, likes to, at the moment, try and revive IPs. So, Microsoft seems to want to revive a bunch of IPs and kind of, I guess, just manage things a little bit better than they have done in recent years. And when you've got a guy like Phil Spencer in there, kind of shaping up the Xbox sort of, I guess, division of Microsoft, it works. It works out really well. But what my worry would be is when Phil Spencer goes, are they going to keep that same sort of mentality? Are they going to keep wanting to be pro consumer and not fall down the same traps they have fell down in the past? Like you've got to kind of cement that sort of, I guess, mindset and that sort of cement that sort of ideology of being like pro consumer, like, and very, I guess, friendly to the gamer. Like, we don't want to see, I guess, another situation where when the Xbox One first came out, and we don't want to see something like what Sony did with the PS3. Like, there's been many cases where companies have kind of fallen off and had a bit of a disaster launch or disaster showcase of stuff, and then it takes years to fix what problems have been made. So I'm at least hoping that all the big three console manufacturers can kind of, I guess, keep that sort of pro consumer mindset and work towards being better for the gamer and be better overall. Like that's what I would hope.
It was kind of crazy seeing how small the Microsoft market was in Japan. It
Yeah,
was very, very small. Like
yeah,
when I went to secondhand stores,
yeah,
their Xbox collection or like selection was like very sparse, and they
yeah.
were typically American copies too. I never saw a
Huh.
Japanese copy. And it was,
Wow.
I guess it was like military families
Hmm.
selling their games. But
Yeah,
like I saw an Xbox 360, like maybe like probably the total amount I saw there was like about five, but
hmm.
they had like tons of Wii's and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Like I feel like the I guess like the Xbox in Japan. I don't know if it's just because of like I think some people speculate it's because of the branding of the Xbox in Japan. Like I don't know if there's like any sort of, I guess, negative connotations with Microsoft in Japan or just the name Xbox in general. But the original Xbox didn't do well in Japan, and then people were saying the 360 was the most successful Xbox console in Japan, at least as far as I'm aware of to today. And I think that was sort of because at the time when the Xbox 360 first came out in Japan, Microsoft had a really big focus on trying to make it appeal to Japan more and try to get those games, like those exclusive Japanese games, on the console. But they didn't really keep pushing it from there. So I think that if, I guess, Microsoft purchases like a few big sort of third party developers from Japan, it might help give them the push to be more appealing to the Japanese market. But at the same time, they've got to kind of find, I guess, the right balance of trying to appeal to the Japanese market and the Western market while also trying to, I guess, not sort of make it confusing. Like, because what what works in the Western market doesn't necessarily work in the Japanese market, and I think Sega's probably one of the key people that would probably know how this would work because Sega was successful in the 90s in the Western market and in the Japanese market. So having someone like Sega kind of, I guess, bought out by Microsoft would kind of teach Microsoft how to better appeal to Japan. So there'd be a bit of a win-win in the scenario by doing that. And also
Definitely.
Sega having more financial backing from Microsoft would be, I think, brilliant. Like that would actually work really well. But I think there's been a lot of speculation about different companies being purchased up, and I remember a few years ago, back around the time when Super Smash Bros. Wii U came out, actually, like a lot of people were talking about Nintendo purchasing a bunch of studios, and there was talks of like Nintendo maybe purchasing Sega or Capcom, and it never happened, but like a lot of people were going, oh, Nintendo might be doing this sort of stuff because maybe they might be a bit desperate to get more games on the Wii U or get more games and IPs to just better back them in the future. And I think instead of Nintendo doing that, what they ended up doing was combining their studios from their handheld divisions and their console divisions, which is how you got the Switch and how you got a lot of games coming out from Nintendo now. Like the Wii U, like we remember that when the Wii U came out, there was like months where you wouldn't see any first party Nintendo game come out. Like it would be months before you
Yeah.
would see a big Mario game or something, and even some cases like it would be like 6 to 8 months, and everyone would go, "Where's Nintendo's games?" And that was because Nintendo had so many like of their divisions working on 3DS games. Like a lot of them were like propping up the 3DS because the 3DS was so successful, but they wouldn't even try and prop up the Wii U in any way at all, really. So now that they've combined their studios, they've got a lot more to work with, and they've got a lot more time to work on a lot of games. Like you're seeing Pokemon games like coming out quite frequently at the moment. Like,
Yeah, it's two this year.
yeah,
Arceus and then Scarlet and Violet at the end of the year.
yeah, and I look at that like I was talking to my friend, my IRL best friend yesterday, and we were like just at an EB Games, and we were kind of going, man, like I was kind of going, man, like is is this fine? Like having Legends Arceus come out at the start of the year, and now at the end of the year, there's going to be also Pokemon like Scarlet and I can't remember what, I think Violet is the other one.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I feel like they're kind of rushing these out a little bit. Like it just feels a bit too quick to see another like just to see another two mainline Pokemon games just thrown out there. Like I'm not sure. I just don't know how I feel about it. It's like I would kind of prefer Game Freak to have like spent a little bit longer on Legends Arceus, or kind of push back Scarlet and Violet a little bit further back to like 2023 and give people a bit of breathing space between the two games. But that's just my personal opinion because I'm just like kind of going, I feel like they're just kind of rushing it out a little bit. But I can see like Game Freak having like Legends Arceus come out and getting pretty decent reception as a good thing. But at the same time, I'm just like, it feels like from what I've seen, because I haven't actually played Legends Arceus because I didn't really like what I saw with Legends Arceus. Because I like more of the old school Pokemon. Like, I'm more of the 2D Pokemon sort of fan, not really the 3D sort of fan. But like what I saw, I was kind of just like, I don't know, like it just kind of looked a bit rough around the edges to me. Like people were saying gameplay is fine, but it looked a bit rough. Like it looked like they needed a bit more time to polish it up. And I'm hoping that Scarlet and Violet might be the games where they kind of go, okay, we've refined what we did in Legends Arceus and we've got it better this time. But I hope that's what they're doing. I honestly hope that they're taking what worked out really well in Legends Arceus and putting that into the next games. But at the same time,
I
at the
oh sorry.
same that's all good. At the same time, I feel like there needs to be a bit more of a traditional Pokemon game that kind of goes alongside these games because for me, I feel like Legends Arceus was kind of like this really big jump from, I guess, the 2D games and even Sword and Shield. It kind of was like this big jump into something completely different. And like Legends Arceus, like I sort of like I ever since like day one I sort of saw the trailers and stuff for Legends Arceus, I was just like I don't know how I feel about this. I don't like open world Pokemon sounds great, but I didn't really particularly enjoy, I guess, like Breath of the Wild. Like as much as I like Zelda, it's not my sort of franchise. It's not my sort of game that I go to because I don't know. I'm more of someone that likes just platformers and just games where I'm having a bit more of a leisure time with. Whereas I feel like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and games like I guess Legends Arceus probably have a bit more depth to them where you feel like you've kind of got to I guess put more time into the game. So it's like it's not the sort of game for me at the moment. Like I'm because I just like having a chill time with games and taking my time. And I don't like playing really super long, I guess, experiences anymore. It's it's just not for me. But with the 2D Pokemon games, I felt like I could just spend more time kind of just having a bit more of a leisure experience. So I feel like there's a little difference between I guess the classic sort of 2D Game Freak Pokemon games to moving into the 3D open world sort of aspect. Like,
I felt like the huge difference between those two, like the 2D Pokemon and like Legends Arceus was I guess like Legends Arceus felt more like a collectathon with completing the Pokédex rather than the older
yeah,
ones.
yeah,
Like it actually felt more enjoyable and leisurely to collect Pokemons and go into
hmm.
battles.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was one of the things that kind of threw me off with Legends Arceus because I'm not really much of the collectathon sort of person. So I was kind of just like, oh, like they have like this more emphasis on filling out the Pokédex and like yeah, that's cool, but it's not for me. Like I don't like I sort of feel like I'm more the one that would just want to go to different towns, go take on the gym and kind of finish the game that way. Like finish all eight, like get all eight badges and maybe battle the Elite Four and that would be it. But and then maybe capture like legendaries, like that would be all I would probably be focused on. But then like some people like just love sort of doing like sort of being the completionist and doing everything. And I'm just not that type of gamer, I guess. Like I just don't really like being a completionist. Like I just like
Me
going in.
neither.
Yeah, like I just like to go in, do the main objectives and then kind of go, okay, do I like do I like what I've played? Yeah. Do I want to do the extra things? Maybe. Maybe if I've got the time, yeah, maybe I might go and do it. But I feel like in some games it's kind of become more a bit like forced onto you, kind of to go, hey, you're a completionist, right? You better go complete everything. And it's not the sort of gameplay style I sort of like. It's like I like having those things as just the optional things. Like it's like in games like Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, you could you could complete the main game, but you didn't have to go around collecting like all the emblems to unlock stuff. Like it wasn't like forced onto you to be like, "Hey, you're going to do this, right?" like like
That
if I was told in Sonic Adventure 2 to go like collect 5 emblems say in a stage and then unlock the next level in the game, I'd be like, that's kind of just slowing down the progress.
reminds me of Ocarina of Time, like
Hmm.
with the whole there are side quests that you don't have to do. And that's what's kind of nice. Like
Okay.
when I played Ocarina of Time on stream, I didn't get the the Bigoron sword, which is a whole it was a trade is a trading side quest.
Hmm.
I don't collect the gold scatolas, which like if you collect a certain amount, um you could go to this house and they'll upgrade your items so you could like hold more arrows and have a bigger wallet and things like that.
Yeah.
Or like I'll find bottles. I'll find 3 of the bottles. I won't collect the 4th one
Yeah.
because that involves collecting all of the big pose in Hyrule Field, and when it
Right.
feels like it's optional, it's like I don't have to worry about it. When it's
Yeah.
in with that when like with Arceus, the thing I really didn't like
Yeah.
was having to fight basically the same boss multiple times. It wasn't like
Yeah.
a gym. It just felt like, okay, I'm throwing sacks
Yeah.
at this giant Pokemon, and it was just the same thing repeatedly. At least with
Yeah.
like Ocarina of Time, each dungeon is different. You collect a
Yeah.
medallion. It has a
Yeah.
different feel to it each time.
Yeah. And like I know like some of my friends that played Legends Arceus, like they were like, "Oh yeah, this is such a good game." And I'm like, "Okay," but when I sort of break it down, I go, "This is not the game for me. Like this doesn't feel like the game that I would want to play." Like when I've heard about all the different things in the game, it doesn't feel like the game that I would want to openly get into. And I think that's one thing that I think Legends Arceus failed to do was sell me on the game as someone who played the classics. Like I loved playing like Fire Red, Leaf Green, like Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Black and White, like but once I got into like I guess once I heard about like Omega Ruby and Omega Sapphire and all those games, I was kind of like out of the loop on Pokemon by that point because I was like I kind of moved on to other games. And then when I saw the Diamond and Pearl remakes, I was like, okay, I'll come back. I'll come back and play Pokemon. And I also picked up like Sword and Shield because one of my friends wanted to play Sword and Shield, so I was like, all right, I'll give it a go. And Sword and Shield felt more like a traditional game, so I was more open to playing it. But like there was so much other stuff in the game that I was like, wow, this has become more complicated and much more different to what I was used to. And I think that's one thing that Pokemon has kind of done a bit too much of is like adding so many different elements while and like kind of confusing new players who might have only played the classic games because you've got so many added elements that it just changes the game entirely from what you would remember. So,
I really
yeah.
I I had really enjoyed Arceus, but like
Hmm.
I think one of the main issues was although the new element of crafting was
Hmm.
pretty cool, it also eliminated the need to use money. And it was like
Right.
I kind of liked that. I kind of liked battling other people and getting money out of it, and then I can
Yeah.
buy Pokeballs. But going to a tree or like picking herbs to get the same
Yeah.
stuff for potions and Pokeballs, I felt like it kind of defeated the purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, what's the point of having in game currency if you're going to go around and like get stuff anyway and craft stuff. Like it's like I mean, it's like okay, yeah, you have the options, but if like you want, I feel like sometimes you've got to trade off giving so many options to kind of streamline the experience a little bit and simplify it to kind of go, oh, you need to do this, okay, do this. Like instead of going, oh, you want to do this, here's five different options of how to do this. Like
Yeah.
like sometimes
I
streamlining it, making it more simple just makes it a bit easier.
I feel like that's what separates it from Breath of the Wild because
Mm,
like both are open world. Yet
yeah,
Breath of the Wild evens out the use of currency and crafting. Meanwhile, Legends Arceus is more like I think last time I played, I had like 300,000 Pokemon money because I
okay.
never use it. There's
Yeah,
no point when you could just go and craft it.
yeah,
With Breath of the Wild, it's like so much more difficult. It's a
yeah,
challenge to find these items to craft, and you might have to most of the time you have to resort to buying it instead,
yeah,
which is a good thing.
yeah. And I
There's a
think
use for in-game currency.
yeah, and I think like in the classic Pokemon games, like you if you wanted like yeah, you might occasionally find a potion, but if you're not bothered to try and explore around and actually look for stuff on the ground, you got like the Pokemart. You could just go there and pick up what you needed. You've got money from battles. It works out. So
Like there's an incentive to battle.
yeah, there's an incentive to battle. You can get Pokemon money and you can go pick up the stuff you need for like the gym battles and stuff like that. But yeah, it's I think that like sometimes games just kind of overcomplicate many different things by adding so many options. Like yeah, it's cool. Like if you're in an open world game, I can see why it totally makes sense to have many different options of how to do things. But I think that sometimes with these open world games, it's forgotten that sometimes you might need to simplify it a little bit so that you're not overwhelming the player with so many different things. Like, if you're going to have the different options, maybe kind of give that over time and not necessarily straight away. Like, that might be another way around it. Like have one or two different options in the beginning, but then later on unlock the different options of how you can do different things. Like it makes me question what it makes me question how Sonic Frontiers is going to be as a game because it's going to be the first open world Sonic game and they're nicknaming it Open Zone and I'm like, "Hey, that sounds cool calling it Open Zone." But we still haven't got gameplay. So what is this game going to be? Because Sonic has played many different gameplay styles in the past. Like you had the boost formula of games from like Unleashed onwards, where the levels would be a bit more linear and you would focus on speed not as a reward but as here it is. Here's the speed you can boost. But in the more classic 3D Sonic games like Adventure and Adventure 2, yeah, the speed you don't have like the speed necessarily just given, but you play the levels because you can explore and you can also like go fast at the same time. You kind of like given a bit more variety with what you can do. So
It was,
yeah,
in Sonic 2, I liked how, like you mentioned, how speed wasn't really given to you, and it's like not. I felt like a lot of like the special upgrade items was pretty cool,
yeah,
like getting to
yeah,
roll through things and
yeah,
getting like really cool power-ups.
yeah,
It wasn't all given to you, which
yeah,
gives you an incentive to play.
yeah. Like it's like I think in Metal Harbor, I think that was where you got like the light speed dash. Like you would
Hmm.
find that little part and you would get given the light speed dash. and it's not just given straight away. And then eventually you were given like the bounce bracelet and stuff. But and the same with Sonic Adventure, like you had to explore around the hub worlds most of the time to get the upgrades. And that was cool. Like you didn't and they weren't like necessary for everything in the game. Like you didn't have to go grinding to look for it to finish the game necessarily. But I think in Sonic Adventure 2 it kind of was necessary, like because you had to like but you got those in the levels. So you would they would be given to you, but you didn't have to go find them really, and you didn't have to go through a hub world because Sonic Adventure 2 didn't have a hub world. But I think there's like really unique things about Adventure 1 and Adventure 2 that kind of make me wonder what would they have done if they did make a Sonic Adventure 3. Like I think a lot of Sonic fans love talking about the possibility of a Sonic Adventure 3, but we still haven't got it after so many years. Like they kept talking about it like over in the years like after, and I know that probably asking for it now is probably not going to happen. But talking about Sonic Frontiers though, I feel like it's going to take a lot of inspiration from Adventure 1 and Adventure 2 because those would be the types of games that would be what could be a precursor to open world Sonic. So I think that there's going to be a lot of different things that could be opened up in Sonic Frontiers. Like maybe we might see the return of some gameplay elements from the adventure games, whether that be like the bounce bracelet or something. Like I would love to see the bounce bracelet back in Sonic Frontiers. That would be a really good move to have, I think. Like having the bounce bracelet would be really cool. But also, I think at the same time, having the parkour elements from Sonic Lost World would be really interesting for an open world Sonic game. Because as much as Sonic Lost World had like a lot of flaws, it tried to be something different. So I think parkour in Sonic really works really well for some elements. But there's like this whole sort of talk of it being like open world, but also having traditional sort of boosting stages like Unleashed and Colors and Generations. So I think they're gonna have a mix of a bunch of different things in this game. It's gonna like have so many different things, but it kind of worries me at the same time that maybe they're gonna be a bit too ambitious and kind of do too much. And I don't know if I trust Sonic Team at the moment to kind of do something super ambitious just yet. Like Sonic Team has been very inconsistent for a long time. So I'm worried. Like it's like we've seen over time that like Sonic Team can do really good stuff like Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 and the previous sort of devs that worked on the classics. We've seen that Sonic Team can do good games like Unleashed and Generations, but we've also seen them do a lot of very inconsistent stuff. So I'm just like, okay, we don't want to see another Sonic 06 situation, but we don't want to see something that's uninspired like Sonic Forces. Like I think personally that Sonic Forces was a bit uninspired. Like it tried to be too much in one go. It tried to appeal to the adventure fans by having a darker story, but they failed to make it a darker story. Then it tried to be create your own custom character, which hey, I liked that element of Forces. I think that was the shining element in the game. like having the custom character creation, but the level design was uninspired and really just looked like it was rushed together. It wasn't like actually put together well. And then there was so many inconsistencies in that game. It just made me go, what were they doing for 4 years? What was Sonic Team what was Sonic Team doing? The rumors suggest that they worked 3 years on the engine and 1 year on the actual game. And I'm just like,
Oh.
um okay. Like that's kind of that's not really the best use of your time. Like, okay, yeah, making a new engine, okay, but did you really need to spend only 1 year on forces? Like, could you have at least said, "Hey, we're gonna delay this"? Could you have like spent a bit more time trying to make it something instead of going, "Oh, we need a game out"? Like, like I get it. Fans would have been probably annoyed that we wouldn't have had a Sonic game, but it's like we've waited 5 years now almost for a new main series game. So what difference does it make? Like, just give us something good. Give us something worthwhile. Like, give us something worth the wait instead of giving us something that's just half put together and not ready. Like, at least it wasn't Sonic 06. as much as as much as I as much as like there's a lot of things I don't like about Sonic 06, I feel like that game has a lot more inspiration behind it than Forces. Like
Wow.
that game had at least a lot more potential to have done good because as much as I didn't like Elise in the game, like I can see why she was there in the plot, but I can see why they were trying to do what they were doing. And there was a lot of good stuff going for it. Like if they spent another year on Sonic 06, I reckon it would have been one of the better games in the series. It had so much potential to be one of the better games in the series. Forces, if they spent another year on it, could have probably been one of the better games too. But I would always look at 06 as one of the games that had more inspiration and more passion behind it because they had a team there that wanted to do so much. They had a team there that wanted to make this like Sonic game back in 2006 one of the most successful games. But it fell on its head because, well, one, Sega was like, "Hey, it's the 15th anniversary," and two, Christmas season's coming up. Let's make money. Like let's make money on Sonic even if it's not finished. And and then also having half the team split up to make a Wii port of 06, which eventually turned into Secret Rings, was another bad decision made. And then also having like your head guy of Sonic Team, Yuji Naka, leave halfway through the development of 06 did not did not make anything go well either. Like there was so many pieces that made 06 flop when it could have been done right. It could have been like it could have been the Sonic game that Yuji Naka could have sent off with and could have gone, "Hey, let's stick around and finish show 6 and then move on from Sonic Team." Or it could have been like the game that could have been so much more. Like imagine if we had Sonic 06 be successful. Like the Sonic series today would be so different. Like and that's I don't think that's exaggerating it at all. Like I think the Sonic series would be so different if 06 was a success. Like
That's very much like Nintendo in
yeah,
some way. like, it makes you imagine, like, what if this didn't happen?
Mm.
Like, with
Like, what if the GameCube was more successful? Like,
the GameCube will always be a success in my heart.
yeah, like
But what
what if the GameCube was actually like much bigger than what it was? Like, what if the GameCube sold like, let's say, 70 million units instead of like 25 million? Like, I don't think Nintendo would have made the Wii. Like, Nintendo probably would have, or maybe they might have, but I think there would be a lot of different choices made if the GameCube was more successful, because you might have seen Nintendo do a bit more of what the other two are doing, like, which would be interesting. But it's like, if Sonic 06 was successful, I could guarantee that probably games like Sonic Unleashed wouldn't have happened. Like, you would have had multiple playable characters still in Sonic games. I think the Sonic games for at least a lot longer would have still been much more story driven. So there could have been so many cool things like that people liked about the franchise that would still be around. I don't think that Sega would be using classic Sonic as a crutch to prop up modern Sonic. Like, because we can see it in the last few years. Like, Sega's just been relying on nostalgia to prop up Sonic, and I think they're finally trying to at least somewhat kind of not do that anymore. Like, they're sort of getting back into that position to kind of go, hey, modern Sonic can stand on his own. He doesn't need classic Sonic to prop him up. Like, you've got Sonic Movie 1 and 2 that kind of embody much more of what modern Sonic is about. But at the same time, I think, from my own personal opinion, like, games like Sonic Colors and Generations and Lost World and all that sort of stuff, the one thing they all lack is a good story. They don't have the same story passion as the early 2000s Sonic games. Like, Adventure 1 and 2 had so much more to do with story and character development and growth than what the current games do. And to me, that's a sad
yeah,
thing, because
it's it's like the I feel like they should try to find some way to balance, like, although like
hmm,
balance the gameplay and graphics, because with,
yeah,
like, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, they're like notorious for being like badly like animated, like their voices aren't in sync
yeah,
with how they're talking and everything. And
yeah,
yet the gameplay was amazing. It had great story behind
yeah,
it as well.
yeah. And I think that a lot of those issues also came from the fact that they were still working a lot of that stuff out at the time. But games like Sonic Heroes, and even like Sonic Heroes, Sonic 06, and even Shadow the Hedgehog, they all had like a good amount of storytelling. And Sonic Heroes didn't overdo the storytelling. It was much more of a light-hearted story for the 2000s Sonic games than most games at the time. But they still focused on having the characters develop and grow in the story. And Shadow the Hedgehog, like, as much as the gameplay was kind of very iffy, because I could say that game had some good elements, but also had a lot of bad elements. They tried some different stuff with that game. Like, they tried the idea of being able to have the, I guess, the decisions you make in the levels influence the outcome of the story. And apparently that was something they were going to try and do in Sonic Adventure 2. They originally were going to have this idea of what you choose to do in the game would influence what path the story takes, which
Hmm,
would have been a really
that would be
unique
cool.
concept, because I think only the only games at the time that really tried to do that were games, I guess, in like later on, like I think Mass Effect and all that, like where you had decisions that would influence the outcome. But if they did that in Sonic Adventure 2, they would have been way ahead of time doing on that doing that sort of thing. Like I don't think you see many platformer games try and attempt to have the story change based on what decisions you make. Like like if like Shadow the Hedgehog I think did that to not really the best success because you had many different outcomes like but also in the end you got the true ending once you played all the different endings. But I think if they streamlined it a bit more, like if Shadow the Hedgehog streamlined itself to be more of a game that kind of just explored Shadow's past without having so many different options, it might have been a better game by doing that. Because, like, okay, like, yeah, Shadow using a gun for some might not be the best idea, but personally, I think it kind of worked for his character a little bit because, like, I know the excuse that people give for Shadow, like not using a gun, is not the best excuse. Like some were kind of going, oh, like I think Izuka, that like the big guy in Sonic Team today, he was one of the directors of Shadow the Hedgehog at the time. He sort of said, oh, Shadow will do whatever it takes to find the meanings to his past. So he wanted to take a bit of a darker turn and use a gun, obviously. but I think it kind of worked out. Like they could have made it work out a bit more because apparently the head of Sonic Team at the time when he was still a director, he was influenced by other games at the time like Jack 2 and all that sort of stuff to make a more darker tone Sonic series game. And they thought Sonic wouldn't be the best fit for it, so why not have Shadow be the better fit? He's a darker character, he's got a bit more of a tragic backstory. It kind of makes sense for him to make some of those sorts of darker choices. So giving him a gun kind of works, kind of, but I mean they could have done it a little bit better. They could have streamlined the game to maybe just focus on the element of discovering his past instead of having the branching storyline approach. And they could have made it more that you just play the game to the end and find out Shadow's past and the meaning of everything. And it might have been a better game by doing that. Like maybe it might have turned out a lot better because the idea they had was to make Shadow a spin-off series where you would have another few games in the series where you sort of learn more about Shadow over time. And I think Shadow would have had a really good spin-off franchise if Shadow the Hedgehog was actually good. Like it like there's so many different things in the franchise that could have gone well if they put more time into it and if they put more thought into it. Like the series would have had so much more success in some areas if they just took their time with some of these things. But that's what I kind of hope they're doing now because we've had Sonic Mania come out and that was a great game. Like Mania kind of revived the classic series and now they've got the remasters of the classics with Sonic Origins. So if that does well, I'm imagining that they will follow up Sonic Mania with another game. And if Frontiers does well, we might see a lot more good stuff happen with the main series. So who knows? Maybe Sonic's back on the good train. Hopefully he's back on the good train and not the bad train where he gets laughed at all the time. Like but I do feel like some of the laughter and stuff that he gets as a franchise is not called for. I feel like sometimes people kind of just like to over exaggerate the problems in the series and kind of go, oh, every Sonic game after the classics was bad. And it's like, I don't think so. They're like, what games have you been playing? Like, it's like Adventure 1 and 2, at least by the fan base, I think, is considered some of the better 3D games in the series. And even like Sonic Unleashed, when that came out, I think got a lot of hate that it didn't deserve. Because now a lot of Sonic fans are turning back to Sonic Unleashed and going, man, this game was not as bad as what they were saying. Like, at the time, it got trashed so hard for trying to be so good, for trying to be, I guess, a bit of a revival after '06. And you could tell with Sonic Unleashed that the team had put a lot of passion into that game to make it as best as it could be. Like, yeah, there was not the best decisions made at all over that game. Like, the Werehog for a lot of people was kind of considered not really fit for the Sonic games, but
Yeah, a lot of people considered it cringe.
yeah. But if you actually play the Werehog, like I can kind of like you sort of understand why they added it. Like like the story explains why they added the Werehog, and they wanted to add like a different gameplay element to the game that wasn't just boosting around all the time. And I can get that. Like but like they had so many different ideas for Unleashed. Like originally in the early development it was going to be Sonic Adventure 3 and that didn't happen. But like they then sort of were like, "Oh, we like they were going to talk about adding Knuckles and Shadow to the game." But that didn't happen. Like I feel like the Werehog would have actually been a good fit for Knuckles. Like because Knuckles being the type of character that has his fists and stuff, I think him having beat 'em up gameplay would actually make a lot of sense. Like, if they had that as Knuckles, I don't think many people would have complained so much, probably. Like, people would have gone, oh, Knuckles, okay, beat him up. Like,
Earlier, we had mentioned the GameCube, and
yes.
um, we had talked about how, like, what if this happened or what if this didn't happen. I
Yeah.
actually wanted to discuss um Shigeru Miyamoto
Oh, yeah.
because
Yeah.
he was actually not a part of the family, and he was just his dad was his like a dad's friend was working there. And
Yeah.
with Nintendo, they have been around since the 1800s. Of course, not as
Yeah.
a digital thing,
Yeah.
but as a trading card thing. And
Yeah.
so they were making trading cards, and it was always like, okay, the son is always going to be the next president in line. And
Yeah.
so they really took a huge leap to have like a son's or like a dad's son's friend or something, or dad's friend work for like their son to work for Nintendo.
Hmm.
And then he ended up making Mario, Donkey Kong, Zelda, and it's
Yeah.
like the biggest people. And it's just crazy to think that, like,
Yeah.
they what if he like not like what if he didn't have a son, but like what if he wasn't friends with people at Nintendo? What if his dad wasn't?
Yeah.
What if he wasn't interested in exploring? Because like
Hmm.
even with Pokemon, that was a
Yeah.
big thing. Both Miyamoto and I forgot the creator of Pokemon's name, but both of them
Yeah.
had like a huge thing into now it's covered by city, but
Hmm.
growing up, they like they grew up where it was nothing but countryside and
Yeah.
forests. And so that's where they got their main inspirations for Zelda.
Hmm.
And like for Miyamoto, that was for his inspiration for Zelda. And then for um the creator of Pokemon, he's like,
Hmm.
what if Like, what if I made some animal friends while I was out here? And Zelda was
Yeah,
like, Miyamoto would be exploring in caves that he would find, and he would be like,
yeah,
what if someone just like explored in here too? And we like made a character based around that.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
It's interesting to think like what if some of those scenarios just didn't happen? Like what would Nintendo be without Miyamoto and the creators of Pokemon and stuff? Like where would they be at? Like and and at the same time like it's interesting because like what if Nintendo didn't have Mario or Donkey Kong?
yeah.
Like where would Nintendo be? Like they were already somewhat into the arcade sort of side of things at that point in time. But would they be as successful? Like would it take longer for them to kind of come around to doing other things? Like there's many different paths that anyone could take, and even just a slight change on the current path could change so many things. Like it's like what if Sega didn't stuff up with the Sega Saturn? Like where like would Sega still be making consoles today? Maybe, maybe not. Like it's like with Sony, like what if the deal between Nintendo and Sony in the 90s had happened and didn't fall under the issues that it did? Sony would kind of be working alongside Nintendo in a lot of cases because it's like I think a lot of people might know the story, but some probably don't. Like, because Nintendo and Sony were gonna have a sort of agreement where Sony was going to make a CD add-on for the Super Nintendo, and Sony was originally going to get all the I guess all the money from the CDs. Sony was going to get all the money from all the games made on the CDs and CDs stuff. And Nintendo kind of didn't realize this until the last minute because they made this deal back in like 1988, like a few years before the Super Nintendo came out, and said, "Oh yeah, we'll make the CD add-on. You can make all the money off the CD stuff. All good. All the CD games can the money goes to you. All the cartridge games money goes to Nintendo." But then last minute when they were going to announce this thing, uh Nintendo reread the contract and were like and they were literally like, "Oh shit." So they were like, "Oh, hey, Phillips, do you want to do something?" And then they announced on the same day that Sony was going to announce this CD add-on. Nintendo announced a deal with Phillips, and everyone was just like, "Huh? What?" And Sony was left there kind of going, um, "What?" Like like Sony was literally embarrassed, going like, "Nintendo, what are you doing? Like you just ripped up an agreement like that, and we announced this thing." So they then tried to salvage the agreement over a couple of years, and eventually Sony and Nintendo were going to kind of make this console that would basically play CD games and cartridge games. So it was kind of going to be the same sort of concept, but in one. So kind of like how Sega kind of had, I guess, kind of like how Sega had this idea of having like a combined console that could play the 32X, Genesis, and CD games. So kind of would have been like that kind of, except Nintendo and Sony would have the one console that plays the cartridges and the CDs, and it would be known as the PlayStation. So, except between instead of calling it PlayStation, it would have been Play Space Station. So, so it was in the works, and there's a couple of prototypes out there. So there's one or two prototypes out there, and the CD drive works apparently, but I don't think it does anything because there's no games to try and see if it works. But it would have been, it basically would have been a more powerful Super Nintendo, I think, that played CDs and cartridges. So that it sounds interesting, and it makes you wonder, like, what if the deal happened? What if Sony and Nintendo salvaged their relationship and actually made a console together? Like, it would have been absolutely crazy. But also, another interesting thing I found out was that the Sega of America CEO at the time, I think it was Tom Kalinske, who was the CEO of Sega of America at the time. He was trying to work on a deal to have the Sega Saturn's graphics done by Silicon Graphics, the same people that made the Nintendo 64's graphics. So
Hmm.
so Sega was trying to get a deal originally to get the graphics of what would be the Nintendo 64, but in the Sega Saturn. And Sega of America wanted it, but Sega of Japan said no. So that left the Sega Saturn's graphics to be much more complicated and the Sega Saturn more complicated to develop for. And then also, Sega had this idea of saying, hey, Sony, do you want to partner up? We could work on a console together. But Sony said no. So, or actually, I think it might have been the other way around. Sony and Sega wanted to do something, but Sega of Japan comes in and again says, no, you're not working with Sony. Because Sega of Japan has this mentality of going, no, we make the decisions. Well, what Sony? Sony makes media stuff. They're not a game developer. They're not a console manufacturer. Like, why would we do anything with them? It's like Sega of Japan. It seemed like back then was always kind of like a bit of a dickhead to Sega of America when Sega of America wanted to do something. I can't speak on today. I don't know what they're like today, but that's the stories we hear back then. Like like Sega of America and Sega of Japan having disagreements constantly about the way they're going to do things. I don't know if it's the same for like Nintendo of America and Nintendo of Japan. Like I don't hear about any disagreements between the two of them, but I always hear about disagreements between Sega of Japan and Sega of America. So it's it's really bizarre and but really interesting at the same time because if Sega of Japan had kind of just listened to Sega of America in the 90s, maybe things would have been okay. Maybe things would have been all right.
Definitely.
Like like maybe not every decision would have been the right one, but maybe if Sega of Japan just gave a little bit of a chance to Sega of America to kind of go, "Hey, let's sort a few things out." Like the interesting thing as well, I was reading up on, I guess, Sonic Team's history a little bit, and it seemed like Sonic Team kind of got away from a lot of the disasters of Sega in the late 90s and early 2000s. It seemed like Sonic Team was kind of just split away from it all and isolated from it because like in the because I think Yuji Naka like was the type of guy that sort of wanted Sonic Team to be quite autonomous with what they could do. So he would always like fight to have control over Sonic Team and manage things. And in some aspects that was a good thing, but I think in some aspects that might have been a bad thing in the long term because I think that sort of made Sonic Team rely on Yuji Naka a lot to make decisions instead of them making
Hmm.
their own choices. Because like Yuji Naka was definitely one of the guys who propped Sonic up to be what he is. But at the same time, I think some people kind of get this sense of, I guess, ownership and kind of go, "Oh, I'm the guy who did this. I'm the guy who did that." Like, and they sort of go and they sort of think that everything's theirs. Like, It's really weird because I think some like I guess heads of certain teams kind of develop this mentality over time that they think that they're better than everyone. Like I don't know exactly like, and I'm not calling Yuji Naka a bad guy or anything. Like I'm just here going off from what I've heard about what he's like and about what some other people have been like in the past. Like I still acknowledge all the stuff that Yuji Naka's done for Sonic, and I still respect the dude like to this day for all the stuff he's done. Like, but I do hear about a lot of different stuff about some of these types of people. Like, apparently Shigeru Miyamoto in some areas has been the same. Like, has because like yeah, you've developed the IP, you've developed a lot of the things, but they sort of think that they can do whatever they want over time, even even like later on when the team itself might want to do something different with the IP. Like they sort of still have this sense of kind of ownership and pride and kind of go, no, you're not doing anything with it. You're not touching it in any sort of way. Like I don't know if Miyamoto would have I don't really know if Miyamoto would accept the idea of there being like Mario games on mobile. I don't know if he accepts it or not. But from what I know, he has kind of pushed like sort of separate himself a little bit and let the younger generations kind of handle Mario and stuff now, which has kind of opened up the door for creative changes and ideas. And I think that Sonic kind of needs to do the same thing, like and kind of open up the door for the younger generations to kind of come in and do a few different things and change it up a little bit. Like he can't be stuck in the old ways. Like as much as I like a lot of the old stuff, and I like with Pokemon, as much as I like the older Pokemon games, I do acknowledge that change has to happen. Change has to kind of like happen to progress the series. Like it can't stay the same forever. And I think that Sonic's kind of going through that now. Is kind of like as much as there's still a lot of nostalgia pandering and a lot of stuff that sort of represents the old, I think there's a lot of stuff that's coming in to represent the new and the new era. Like Sonic movie 1 and 2. It's the new era of Sonic. It's multimedia Sonic. Like it's not just about the video games anymore. Like you've got the movies, the TV shows, like the merch line. You've got all these different things that represent Sonic now. And I think Mario will probably go through some of those same changes. Mario will progress to be not just the games, but also the movie that's coming and eventually the merch lines that might follow with that. Mario will be in a completely different new era and be something probably different to what you would have thought 20 years ago was Mario. Like, hell, we're seeing more Mario spin offs again. We're seeing the Mario Strikers come back, and I'm like, hell yeah, Mario Strikers, let's bring that back. Like, what else are we gonna have next? Like, are we gonna have another Mario crossover game finally? Maybe with Sonic, we might get a Mario Sonic crossover finally. Like, is it gonna happen? Because apparently, interestingly enough, apparently in the mid 2000s, there was a lot of talks about a Sonic and Mario crossover game, and apparently they were gonna like Yuji Naka and Shigeru Miyamoto were gonna meet and talk about crossing over Mario and Sonic in some sort of game. But maybe after Sonic 06, maybe Miyamoto might have changed his mind on that. Maybe he might, and maybe I think maybe at the same time, whoever took over Sonic Team probably thought, like I don't know. But we eventually did see Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, so there's a crossover. that most people probably didn't expect to happen. So that happened. But I would love to see like just a Mario and Sonic crossover game where the two worlds kind of get connected and somehow they have to work to, I guess, save the world or something. It would be really cool. Like, I don't think a lot of people expected like the Super Smash Bros. Series to have so many characters in it now. Like, it's like I think they have the record for like the most characters in a video game now. And like from
That's
different,
impressive.
yeah, from like different franchises. It's like I don't think anyone expected the Final Fantasy crossover with Smash Bros. And I don't think anyone expected like Microsoft to kind of give Banjo and Kazooie a chance to be in Smash. Like, so there's so many characters in Smash Bros. What's next? You're gonna see Master Chief in Smash Bros. One day. Like, it's like Smash Bros. Just has so many characters, and but I wonder if they're gonna make another one now because I think the guy who was making Smash Bros. Was like talking about, I think, retiring at some point. I think, or he was talking about not making them again. So
Oh,
can't remember his name. Like,
Sakurai?
yeah, Sakurai, I think it was. Like, I just like if it's not gonna be him, who's gonna make Smash Bros? Like, someone's got to do it because it's a popular franchise, and I don't think they're gonna give up on Smash Bros. Like, I wonder who's gonna do it then. If it's not Sakurai, who's going to do it? Who's gonna make Smash Bros next? For whatever the next system is. Like, I don't want to think it's the end of Smash Bros. Like, as much as we got all the characters, and then the other thing that's going to be interesting is how's Nintendo going to, I guess, sign all these agreements to have all these characters again for the next Smash Bros. Like, because I don't think they've had any Smash Bros. Games where they've like left out characters from another Smash Bros. Game because of agreements. Like they've always signed agreements to have the characters again. So I'm wondering what the next Smash Bros. Game will be because we've had Smash Bros. And they called it Smash Bros. Ultimate, which is a good fitting name because there's so many characters. But what the hell's the next bloody Smash Bros. Game going to be called? I don't think it's going to be called Smash Switch because you won't have like I don't think it'll be called the Switch again unless maybe it will, but it's not going to be Smash Bros. Switch because Ultimate's technically Smash Bros. Switch. They just wanted to have a better name for it. Whereas Nintendo was lazy with the Wii U version, just calling it Smash Bros. Wii
Oh,
U.
4.
Yeah, like but everyone was just like Smash Wii U, like or Smash 3DS. Like it's like could you have at least come up with a better name? Like you came up with Smash Bros, then Smash Bros Melee, then Brawl, then Wii U and 3DS. Like what? Like where was the name? What did you just do, Nintendo? Just couldn't come up with a name? And then at least with this one, Smash Bros Ultimate, at least it works. So what's the next one gonna be called? Like, are we gonna have it called Smash Bros Revolution or something? Like that would be a good callback to the Wii's development name, like Smash Bros
I
Revolution.
remember I remember back in high school
Yeah.
because Smash Brothers 4 or on the Wii U and 3DS didn't have a name that
Yeah.
people would call it trash. But with the A replaced with the 4.
Oh, Smash Bros trash. That's kind of funny. Like like they should have called it no, they should have bloody called it friggin' wait no, they should do a callback and name the next one like after something about Satoru Iwata. That would be a good callback. Like
definitely.
Like name it something after he's done or something like like actually that's why I think Smash Bros Revolution would work so well because Iwata was like one of the key people behind the Wii. So like Smash Bros Revolution. Call it that. There you go. There's a free name, Nintendo. Go take it. Like, but yeah, like there's so many different game franchises that are like just so good, and like a lot of good people in the I guess the gaming scene. Like a lot of people acknowledge the work that Iwata done for Nintendo, and then and then it's the same for Sega. Like there's a lot of good people in Sega that had raised that company and had also made a lot of good stuff. And then like hey, Microsoft, Sony, like I don't know if I can say much for EA. It's a bit of a slight jab for EA with the loot boxes sort of stuff kind of going on there like but I'll acknowledge EA has made a lot of good stuff as well. I'm not gonna just completely trash EA as much as I would love to because of the microtransaction sort of stuff. But yeah, it's like there's a lot of good stuff in gaming that I think a lot of people sometimes forget to acknowledge, and a lot of good stuff that comes from all these different franchises. Like I think people forget as well that like some games are really hard to make. They're not easy. Like it's like yeah, we can say what we want all the time, but it's never easy to make the games. Like making I imagine that making Mario Odyssey would have been very difficult. There would have been a lot of stuff to go into that game that was a lot so different than what they'd been doing in recent years. And they still made a very good product out of that. So maybe Odyssey 2 will happen. Let's hope. Let's hope that Odyssey 2 happens. But it's the same, like, it's like making a Sonic game is not easy. Like, making a Sonic game is probably one of the hardest sort of platformer type of games to make because you've got a character going so fast on screen that you've got to generate so much terrain. So you got to spend a lot of time working on the terrain. Then you got to work on the level design, and then it's not as easy as making a simple platformer. Like yeah, you could probably make it a bit easier by slowing Sonic down and all that sort of stuff. But then you kind of ruin the purpose of Sonic if you slow him down too much. So it's like it's all about I guess precision, balance, trying to just find the right sort of balance between different gameplay styles and ideas. So I would love to see another Sonic game like Sonic Adventure, but I know at the same time that's not what all the fans want. Like a lot of fans do want it, but not every Sonic fan wants another Sonic Adventure. Like a lot of Sonic fans just want a good game to be honest. Like a lot of Sonic fans just want to see a good 3D Sonic game. They don't care what the gameplay style is as long as it's good, as long as it's refined and solid. And I can lean on that camp too. As much as I like Sonic Adventure and a lot of the good stuff that had happened in the franchise back then, I simply just want a good game that takes whatever's good from the series and does it better. That's that's all I want. I didn't expect Sonic Frontiers. I didn't expect an open world Sonic game. In fact, I probably wasn't expecting that for a long time. But for Sonic Team to come out and say, "Hey, we're making an open world Sonic game," the first thing I thought was, "Oh," like I had no idea what to think because I was like, "Is Sonic Team gonna execute this right? Is Sonic Team has Sonic Team got the resources to make an open world Sonic game?" Like because Sonic Forces looked like a very budget Sonic game. It looked like there was hardly any budget in that game at all. And I guess the movie probably saved them a bit. I think
Yeah.
I think the movie kind of saved Sonic Team probably because now Sega's like, "Hey, we have a couple $100 million now and probably split between Paramount and Sega and whatever. Here's Sonic Team, take a couple $1 million that you probably should have had before, but we decided not to give you because Sonic Boom failed. Here you go. Now go make a Sonic game. Make it good." And also seeing Sega actually acknowledge with the Sonic series for the first time as well to delay their games. Like Sonic Mania got delayed and came out good. Team Sonic Racing came out and that still did okay. I kind of wish it did better, but still did okay. They delayed it, so I think that works. Uh, so seeing that they're not like just rushing stuff out the gate, that's promising. That's kind of promising. But I still see that there was still the blunder with Sonic Colors Ultimate, which I think that wasn't necessarily Sega's fault. Um, I think that was actually kind of the development studio they put on to do that project, which they'd also stuffed up other projects. So I'll give Sega a little bit of the benefit of the doubt on that one, but at least it looks like they're on track to do better. So I'm kind of going, okay, just please don't stuff up Sonic Frontiers, please. Like just I honestly beg. I beg not to stuff it up. And I think that's but it's like that's the thing with game franchises. It's like if you have a set of good games and suddenly have a bad game follow it, most franchises would go, "Oh, it'll be better next time, right?" But with Sonic, it's like you get two good games, then you get three mediocre or bad games following it. So so it's kind of hard to have trust in Sonic Team to do something that's actually going to be good. So so I think that the team kind of having a break and kind of working on stuff like and trying at least gives me a bit more hope than what I would have had in the past, considering like Frontiers is going to be a big ambitious game and they need all the time they can get to make it good. I'm just kind of going, well, at least it's not Call of Duty every year coming out. Like, because I think that this is going to be the one good thing actually with Microsoft owning Activision Blizzard. Apparently, they're going to take some of those teams away from Call of Duty. So, so they're finally going to work on something different than other than Call of Duty. So that that's promising. I don't think we need a Call of Duty game every year. Like, like if you're a Call of Duty fan and you're used to a game every year, I mean, okay, it's gonna suck, but you're probably gonna have a better Call of Duty game to look forward to in the long run than here's another Call of Duty game every year. Like it's like Assassin's Creed, I think, for a while was kind of going one every year. And then they realized they need more time to polish some of these games, so they're taking their time a bit more now. So I think giving a bit of breathing space for franchises instead of just shoveling out games every year is probably a good thing. Like it gives more time for devs to work on other franchises and other projects while also refining the games that they have in those particular franchises. Like
Yeah.
like in the 2000s, Sonic was like Sonic was literally just like plastering games out every year. Like you had Sonic Adventure, then you had like Sonic Shuffle, then you had Sonic Adventure 2, then you had Sonic Advance 1, 2, and 3, Heroes. Like everything was getting shoveled out. Like every year there would always be something new with Sonic. And I think for a lot of Sonic fans at that point in time, they were going, well, if one game flopped, at least we got another one right around the corner. But so that was a bit of an advantage with some of that stuff by having a game every year, because some fans would go, oh, well, if this game didn't do well, there's another game. But at the same time, it's splitting the resources between the teams instead of kind of having them all together to work on the big project. So I think that even though we're not getting every year like a big Sonic game, I think the advantage is that more time and care is put into them. So even if one does kind of fall flat, yeah, it's gonna suck. It's gonna really suck because it's a big project. But you can at least most of the time acknowledge that the team tried. That's what I think, at least. I think you can acknowledge the team tried to make something good. Like, I think it's like with Mario. I don't like you don't see Mario shovel out a main series Mario game every year. Like, imagine if Mario was having a main series game every year. That that would be, I think, an overload. Like, I mean, like, yeah, Mario's got a lot of sort of split off projects, but at the same time, Mario is like just so big of a franchise that there's so many teams that work on stuff. So yeah, but but I guess we'll sort of skew into anime because I think games is like a topic we've probably talked a crap ton about. But like what sort of animes do you like watching?
Mostly older ones, but
Hmm.
mm, like 80s and 90s, some
Okay.
early 2000.
Yeah.
Rarely anything past 2000 and like 13. Very
Like
rarely.
okay. Yeah, it's interesting for me because like I think some of the first animes like I've obviously watched like would have been Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff when I was growing up. I didn't even classify them as animes because they were just like on TV all the time. So it was like, oh, these just cartoons like everything else. But then when I started actually getting into anime, and I told this story actually I think I told this story to Mystic in the last podcast actually, which is interesting. Like my friend my friend Zach DeBros, he kind of got me into anime. And I had friends that have watched anime for a long time, but Zach DeBros got me into anime. And the way he did it was funny because I saw him one day when I was going to school, and basically he was like he had his headphones in and he was watching a pretty etchy anime. He was watching High School DxD actually,
Oh
and
my goodness.
and this is how I got into anime. Funny enough, so I was looking at what he was watching because like I was kind of going, wait, what is he watching? And like I think the moment I was sort of observed what he was watching because he was just on his phone watching it, and he had his headphones in, and I was like, oh, what is this? And he's like, oh, it's an anime called High School DxD, and I'm going, is this an anime? Like, because etchy scenes and anime, I didn't really associate those two things because I didn't really watch anime at the time. So I was like, oh. Is this an anime? Are you sure this is not anything else?" And he's like, "No, it's anime." And he's like, "Oh, you should watch it." And I'm just like, um, maybe, I don't know. So so then I ended up watching the first three seasons of High School DxD. So I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, cool anime." And yes, not just the okay, it not just for the plot elements. The actual plot was good too in the anime, like at least for the first three seasons. But yes, I can say I did watch High School DxD probably a bit more for the other plot as well. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed High School DxD, and then I started finding other animes. I started finding like Fairy Tail and Naruto a lot more. I sort of started watching Naruto a bit, and yeah, like over my time in anime, like I had ended up having some really cool characters that I ended up just enjoying over time. Like Sasuke is one of my favorite characters from Naruto, and some people go, "Oh, he's the edge lord character," and it's like, uh, Sasuke, like to me, had a deeper backstory and meaning. So that's why I so like Sasuke, because he had a deeper character, and to me, it was a deeper character than Naruto, in my opinion. But I enjoyed Naruto's character, obviously, in Naruto. But yeah, I think that 2000s and 2010s animes have sort of been where I've sort of sat because I'm probably much more of a newcomer to animes. But I do want to go back and sort of look at some of those 80s and 90s animes as well a bit more. But yeah, like I guess when it comes to 80s and 90s animes, like what sort of animes do you really like from that time period? Like what sort of stuck you to that time period with animes?
Mm, I think mostly animes. Like I grew up watching Ranma Half and Inuyasha, Sailor Moon,
Okay.
and Fooly Cooly, which is all like different eras between the,
Hmm.
I believe, the 80s and the early 2000s.
Okay.
And ever since then, I've really enjoyed them. Like they've
Hmm.
really stuck. They have impressive art styles that are very
Yeah.
different from each other,
Yeah.
and like even like I enjoyed Cowboy Bebop, for
Oh
example,
yeah.
and they drew amazing spaceships, and
Hmm.
then you kind of like look at modern anime and they all kind of just looks the same,
Yeah, I
like
can
the very
admit that.
moe style,
Yeah.
like cutesy eyes and stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah.
where's the actual effort in the art? Like,
Yeah.
you know, if you look at Akira, which came out in I believe in 1997,
Hmm.
there's videos on them like hand painting each and individual lights in the buildings.
Yeah.
Um, as like they walk by and stuff, and it's just like, what happened to that? Like even in
Hmm.
Studio Ghibli
Yeah.
movies, you could tell that the trees were all hand painted,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so that's kind of disappeared, and I feel
Hmm.
like that's what keeps me enjoying like those older things. Like when we have watch parties, we've watched Golden Boy. You
Yeah.
know, it's like he makes very um Kentaro makes very distinct faces. He doesn't always have the same face. He always makes
Yeah.
different and funny faces that make you laugh. And it has like really funny humor, and like there's not that much humor these days. And that's what's really,
Yeah.
not only the humor but also the art style. And that's what's
Hmm.
mostly kept me interested in the older animes.
Hmm. Yeah, like it's like Yu-Gi-Oh had like I think at that time like the art style definitely is different to today's sort of stuff. And Yu-Gi-Oh had like a really interesting art style. Like I think the eyes were more defined and all that sort of stuff back then. Like
Mhm.
and like I could see like there's a big difference between art styles from back then to today. Like today's is a lot more similar across the board for all of them. And I kind of hope that at least somewhat in future, like animes will kind of diversify the art style a little bit more again to kind of have those unique differences in their in what they do. Like like I know that like High School DxD had a really big change in art style like in season 4 compared to the first 3 seasons. And season 4 some people said, "Hey, the art style is more improved." Some hated it entirely. And I think that like I know that one of my favorite animes, Data Live, had like some really cool had a pretty cool art style which probably would have been similar to most animes today. But I've heard that season 4 in Data Live has a unique change to it, which I'll have to have a look
Mm.
at because I think that a lot of the animes now are sort of going for they're sort of starting to improve not only like at least their art style well, even though it's similar. It looks like the next step they're taking is improving like lighting elements and stuff and all the other technical stuff behind the scenes with I guess what they're doing. I'm not exactly sure like what else they're doing, but it just looks like the lighting is different in a lot of newer animes. Like they're improving the lighting aspects in scenes.
Mm.
So, so I guess it's more just the effects are improving now. But if they took the other art styles from the past and slapped them into today and changed them up and added like I guess the effects improvements, it would probably be a new take on the old styles, which would be really cool to see. Like, why not bring back like OG Yu-Gi-Oh and and have these cool modern effects on the old art style? Like, do something cool, do something unique. Because one thing I am seeing with at least on the gaming side is 2D sprites are coming back a lot more, but they're also adding what they're calling like HD 2D. So they're adding like the 2D sprites, but like adding, I guess, realistic lighting and 3D elements to the 2D sprites. And it looks so cool. Like it looks really awesome and I would love to see more games take on that sort of art style. But anime kind of needs the same thing at the moment. It needs like a bit of a classic take on some things with the old art styles, but modernizing the old art styles and doing other innovative changes as well, I think. Because there's so much that can be done. Like so many cool things that could be done that we just haven't seen yet and just haven't been taken advantage of. So yeah, like it's like it's like a lot of cartoons. A lot of cartoons are really like kind I feel like cartoons have kind of gone downhill a little bit in recent years. Like cartoons, a lot of cartoons used to have the deep storytelling, and then they went for this more like all ages kind of, I guess, comedy fest for years. And I was kind of going like, hey, comedy's good to have. Like, don't get me wrong, a good like good comedy TV shows like cartoons and animes would be cool, but like still you're still gonna have the deep storytelling to kind of go along with it, at least in my opinion. Like, because you want to relate to the characters, you don't want to just kind of watch for 5 minutes and then forget about it. Like, like it's good to have some shows that are like that you watch for 5 minutes and you can watch at any time. You don't have to follow it. But you've got to have a mix as well where you've got TV shows and cartoons and stuff that engage you to want to watch more. Like you want to invest in some series, not just watch for 5 minutes and forget entirely everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like that with games, like that with shows, like I feel like some things have kind of been missing in recent years from a lot of things. So,
I
yeah.
I think that um I hmm with cartoons it's pretty tough, you know?
Yeah.
With like because I feel like the comedy has always kind of been an all age thing. Like if you go back to
Yeah.
Shrek, for example, I mean
Yeah.
there's funny things that
Yeah.
were funny to children, but there's also very adult jokes like
Yeah.
when Shrek and Donkey go to the castle and they're
Yeah.
like, you think he's overcompensating for something,
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
and like it was
Yeah.
fun for everyone to enjoy. But yeah, I definitely do agree that the characters are a lot less relatable.
Yeah. Like a
I
lot of
feel like it's not really the comedy, it's
yeah.
the having a relation to the
Yeah.
main character.
Yeah, and it's like I know, like a lot of Naruto fans don't like the Boruto series. When I watched Boruto at first, I kind of knew to expect that it would be more lighthearted in the beginning, but a lot of Naruto fans at the start were kind of like, "Oh, this is worse than the original Naruto. This is worse than Shippuden." And I'm like, yeah, but we're still early on. We're still early stages. We're gonna get to some of those more darker elements and more story driven elements soon. It's just not gonna happen straight away. Like the original Naruto, yeah, it had a lot of dark elements right off the bat thrown in there, but and was very story driven right from the get go. But Boruto is being told in a different era because the original Naruto sort of set in the era where the ninja villages weren't really like I guess connected as much as they are in the Boruto era. Like they've like the Boruto era is kind of in a peace period and is going to start heading back into a more darker period where things will change. So So Boruto, of course, is going to start off much more lighter, much more just establishing his character and sort of seeing like the new Genin squads that have started up from the ground up. And in the manga, we're seeing a lot of really dark stuff that's going to come ahead. So, and I don't want to spoil any of it for anyone, but it's like the Boruto series is going to definitely start getting a lot more darker toned as time goes on because the whole idea is the concept that Boruto is basically going to lose everything. He's going to lose everything that he loves and cares about. But he starts off with everything there for him. So I think it's going to be one of those stories where while you start off with everything, that doesn't last. You're not going to have your friends around you forever. You're not going to have everything that you've wanted in life for the whole time. Things will change. And that's what's going to happen with Boruto. So it's like kind of telling the Naruto story, but I guess kind of in reverse a little bit. Because the Naruto story, like, yeah, Naruto didn't have much when he was growing up. Because being the Nine Tails, being all that sort of stuff, he had to work to get to where he is. Boruto had all that mostly given to him because his father's the Hokage and they're in a peacetime, but he's going to lose it all. Everything's going to go. So I think it's kind of genius storytelling, in my opinion. It's kind of genius storytelling. Having the main character not have have everything and then lose everything, it's gonna kind of make you go, oh, so is he just destined to lose? But no, he's going to lose, but I think he's then going to win again. So I think Boruto is kind of one of the outliers when it comes to, I guess the kind of main sort of, I think you'd call it like shonen animes, like where it's a bit of the reverse happening. So it's a little different, but some people don't like it, and I can see why. Like you expect Boruto to be more like the OG Naruto, where it's more tougher fights, more tougher stuff, but it's just gonna take a bit longer to get to that sort of stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of interesting. And like I've been following Boruto since day one, basically, and I found enjoyment in it that maybe a lot of other people didn't, and that's fine. Like I'm not gonna criticize anyone for not liking Boruto. I can understand that it's not the same, and it's different. Like some animes, like I've kind of been turned off from a lot of action sort of orientated animes for a little while. Like I've been more focused on the romantic comedy animes actually. Like I've been watching a lot of the romantic comedy animes and it's kind of funny actually. It's a bit of a different change of pace. Like it's much more relaxed and just kind of like, oh yeah, this is a good anime. Like I get to learn about characters and maybe a bit of etchy scenes every once in a while, and it's just fun humor, which which is something that I kind of never expected I'd be watching really. Like I never expected to be watching the sort of romantic comedy genre of anime. I expected to be watching action, but once I got shown animes like K-On! And stuff, I was like, oh, this exists. Okay, I'll I'll go into this genre, and then I ended up following the other anime, Kaguya-sama Love is War, and I was like, wow, this is genius writing. This is good writing. Like it's funny, hilarious. Character development is still there in some of these animes, and I'm like, yeah, this is good. Like, give me more of that. But yeah, I still enjoy the odd action anime. It's just some animes are just not for me at the moment. Like, I don't feel like taking on big animes really at the moment. I just like to take on mostly smaller stuff. But I'm watching the more, I think, because there's two versions of this anime. I think there's two versions of Fruits Basket. Like, there's the OG one.
Oh, it's yeah, the
Like,
remastered.
I'm currently watching the newer one, the remastered one, because one of my friends hooked me up onto Fruits Basket, the remastered one. But then I heard there was an OG one, and I'm like, okay, well maybe after I finish the current one, I'll have to go back to the OG one and see what that's like. But yeah, I've been enjoying the remastered one. It's been pretty good so far from what I've watched. But I've watched about 20 episodes so far. So it's it's quite good. But like there's so many animes that I've followed and I forget so many of them too. Like some animes I watched back in like 2017, 2018. If you told me about them now, I'd probably forgotten them. I've probably gone, wait, did I watch that? And then I go back and I go, oh yeah, I did watch that. But yeah, there's lots of animes, like, and there's many different genres, and like I could talk about let's say the etchy genres a lot, but and also talk about the off-brand animes, but I won't do that here because I probably wouldn't be able to. But yeah, it's like the way I got into off-brand is quite interesting actually, but I won't talk about that here. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I guess like I kind of want to talk about music because music's something like I tend to, I guess, indulge in quite a bit. Like I do like writing amateur rap lyrics quite a bit. Like
Hmm.
so I do kind of write rap lyrics quite a bit, but a lot of the time I sort of feel weird trying to share them with people. Sometimes I go, "Oh yeah, I'm okay sharing it," but then sometimes I go, "Okay, but I want to rap it. I want to actually rap it, and I want to have a beat that I can make to rap it with." But I have no musical knowledge. I have no knowledge on how to make beats. So I've got to like I sort of use like a bunch of YouTube sort of free copyright instrumentals and then just rap over it and find the right one to go with it. But
Yeah.
it works. but I love but I love working on like I love just like listening to music like because bands like Linkin Park for me and stuff are my favorites. Like I'm very much as I like writing rap lyrics, I love listening to more rock and metal and sort of more in that sort of place. But I guess like what type of music do you like? Is there any particular stuff you like in that sort of scene, I guess?
I do also love Linkin Park,
Yeah.
but I'm still stuck in the 2000s and like
Yeah.
the anywhere
Yeah.
between like the 70s and the 2000s, that's where I'm stuck.
Okay.
And like there will be some music that I'll be interested in like these days. Like
Hmm.
I like Rex Orange County
Okay.
mostly. That's
Yeah.
like one of like the few newer bands that I'll listen to.
Yeah, I've never heard of them. It could also be because Australian music tastes are probably a little bit different, but like Australia, because like a lot of Australians, I think find I do find a lot of Australians still tend to be stuck in the 2000s a little bit sometimes. Like there's like a lot of people I talk to still love 2000s bands and are still maybe stuck in their rock emo phases a little bit, but and I find that to be a good thing to be honest, because I love kind of I love 2000s music, but and I feel like at the moment in the last year or two, there's been a bit of a revival in the 2000s sort of music style. So I'm really happy about that because I'm like, okay, I was ahead of the curve bloody 5 years before these guys were coming in with 2000 style music. like, like I was writing rap lyrics and doing the rock mashup bloody in 2017. but yeah, like it's like there's so much good stuff in the 2000s. Like I don't really have much of a connection to like 70s or 80s, but I'd say probably my parents do have a lot of connection to like 70s 80s. Like they love that sort of era of music. and
Same.
I'm more sort of stick to maybe the like mid to late 90s as my earliest that I really sort of stick to. But 2000s for me is like where everything was. 2000s was like the where the rap scene was kind of coming in, where the rock scene was still like really relevant in music, and there was a lot of good stuff. And then like you had a lot of cool emo bands, like you had bloody Bring Me the Horizon start up in the 2000s. You had like yeah, Bring Me the Horizon, Linkin Park, Bullet for My Valentine, like so many bands, and like hell, let's add freaking Avril Lavigne in there, like and Paramore, like lots of good stuff, lots of good stuff in the 2000s, especially in the rock scene. But then the rap scene, like Eminem coming up a lot more than what he was in the
Yeah.
90s, like Eminem became a lot more relevant, and like so there's so much. And I think the 2000s had the right mix of everything. Like the 2000s, like nothing felt like it was overdone, really. Like everything felt like there was a balance. Like you had rap scene, rock scene, the pop scene, everything felt balanced. And then
Yeah,
when you get into the 2010s, rock just died. Rock just like completely died off. Like there was like little bursts where rock was kind of back in the mainstream, but rock just went out of the mainstream. So pop, rap, and I guess whatever else kind of came in after that kind of took over.
that's that's why I really enjoyed things like Linkin Park and Pink because Linkin Park was
Yeah,
like a mix of rap and rock, and Pink was a mix of pop and rock, and it was like they
yeah,
had good blends together.
yeah,
And I feel like yeah, definitely rock did die, and I feel
yeah,
like one of the few things keeping it alive was Pink.
yeah. I think that like in the at least in the late 2000s, like I think we kind of saw at that point in time that rock was kind of starting to decline, but you still had like Avril Lavigne, Paramore, and Pink, like
Mhm.
in their own sort of ways, kind of like blending pop and rock a little bit. So like there would still be those elements of guitar and stuff. But then once we go into like the early 2010s, like we kind of saw rock just kind of turn into like the boy bands kind of turn into more pop rock than anything, and kind of just transitioned straight to pop after that. They kind of went away from rock entirely. And yeah, like we had like he had One Direction and 21 Pilots, and like they kind of started off with a bit more rock elements, I think, but just went straight into pop. And the same for like 5 Seconds of Summer. Like it kind of just boy bands became pop boy bands, not real like 2000s boy bands. like they kind of just became their own pop sort of bands. But I think in the at least so far in the early 2020s we're kind of seeing 2000s music kind of start to become trendy and cool again. Like we're kind of seeing, whether you like him or not, Machine Gun Kelly coming back in and bringing pop punk back into the scene. And Avril Lavigne's kind of done the same thing now, and even Halsey came in with a rock album. And I was like, oh, well, whether you like these artists or not, they're helping the rock genre kind of get back on its feet a little bit, because the rock genre, I think the biggest problem with it was there was no one really new to kind of really bring it to the mainstream in the 2010s. There was no one new to kind of push it into the mainstream. And I think another thing was they couldn't blend it into the mainstream. They didn't really have the know-how to blend it and make it to the mainstream. Like I think one of the genius things that Machine Gun Kelly did with Tickets to My Downfall was he kind of picked up on the 2000s nostalgia, and you can thank TikTok as well probably for helping bring back rock a little bit. He picked up on the 2000s nostalgia that everyone was feeling and kind of went, "Hey, rap's kind of yeah, rap's cool, but you know like that trap sort of element in rap, let's put that in pop punk and see if that translates to being good, and push it out to everyone to say, hey, pop punk's back, and trap with guitars and stuff kind of sounded pretty good. So like, and still having the acoustic like elements, like the real like live drums and everything kind of back in it as well, it worked. Like I listened to Tickets to My Downfall when it came out, and I was like, man, this is so good. This gave me my 2000s nostalgia back. And like, whether you like Machine Gun Kelly or not, like it was pretty good. And having Travis Barker from Blink 182 help him produce that album, it it was actually genius. And now
Y-
Machine Gun Kelly is back for round two with Mainstream Sellout, and that that was a pretty decent album. But I think that one did a lot of different stuff because pop punk's always had the idea of being like energetic and more happy vibes generally. But there's always a bit of a serious undertone to pop punk. But I think what Machine Gun Kelly tried to do with this album was kind of go, I want to explore the darker elements. Like he was kind of going into his emo phase, let's just say. And he wanted to sort of make it a bit more, I guess, darker themed. So he wanted to talk about more darker themed stuff, like some of the more tragic stuff in, I guess, what's associated with emo. Like some people were like saying, "Oh, he's talking about teenage problems at the age of 30." Well, yeah, he is. He's talking about teenage problems at the age of 30. Like maybe it's not a good idea for him to be talking about that stuff in an album when he's 30. But I feel like he was kind of talking about it because he was kind of trying to appeal to younger generations that know about this sort of stuff. And yeah, I can agree. Maybe it's not the best place to do it, but I still enjoyed the music and I still listened to the songs and kind of went, well, yeah, some of these things need to be talked about. But yeah, maybe it could have had a better mix of some more light-hearted pop punk songs like in Tickets to My Downfall, plus some of the more darker themed songs. But it really had a lot of different elements. It had a bit of more trappy sort of rap style stuff in the album, but it also had some more grungy rock style stuff in there as well. And I was like, it's a good mix. It was a really good mix of different stuff. Was it great? Well, no, but it was still pretty good, pretty solid of an album. And there was still some good songs on there. Like you had collaborations with Bring Me the Horizon, you had collaborations with Lil Wayne, surprisingly, on the album. And it's weird seeing Lil Wayne and Bring Me the Horizon collabed on the same album. Like, it's bizarre, but I think it was a an okay album. Like, do I like MGK as a person? Well, there's a lot of things he's done that I don't like, but I got to give him props for his music. And I think it's the same for like artists like Eminem. There's like whether you like them as a person or not, like sometimes you got to acknowledge the talent that comes out of these albums and what influences it will have in the genre. So, yeah, like it's like many different artists. Like you don't have to like them as a person, but you can still acknowledge the good music.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I guess was there any like 90s or 80s artists like you really liked in general?
Now I gotta check my Spotify.
Yeah,
Because
like
sometimes they blend.
yeah, like I've got like a full-on emo pop punk playlist I have, which I'll see if I don't know if it's gonna pop up if I okay, it won't pop up on screen. Good. So yeah, like I'm gonna look at my pop punk playlist actually. Like I've got Bring Me the Horizon, 3 Days Grace is in there because I love 3 Days Grace.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
I
I think
loved 3 Days Grace
oh,
when I
so
was
good.
in like middle school and high school. It was like
Yeah,
it was my life.
yeah. Like I know that the original singer of 3 Days Grace, Adam Gontier, he's got another band
Mhm.
called Saint Azonia, so you should check them out. Like
I
he,
remember between that and 3 Days Grace, he tried doing a solo thing, and that
yeah,
did not
yeah, it
that did
didn't go
not
that
work out.
well, but he made another band, Saint Azonia, and it's pretty good. Um, he like the current 3 Days Grace is still pretty good, even without Adam Gontier. Like it has
Ooh,
lost a little bit of the touch, a little, but they're kind of skewing into their own stuff now, which I think is better for them because trying to emulate old 3 Days Grace is not a good idea. But
yeah.
yeah, like Bring Me the Horizon, 3 Days Grace. I got Avril Lavigne on here. Um, I've even got Motionless in White on here. I love the old Skillet stuff, and I still love some of their new stuff too. Like Skillets, like songs like Hero, Whispers in the Dark, really good. Kind of remind me of old YouTube a bit because I always saw their songs on like AMVs.
Yeah.
Um,
AMVs
Star
are so good.
Starset was good. Um, oh yeah, we've got A Day to Remember as well. God damn, A Day to Remember. Um, an Australian rock band actually. That's interesting. That does a lot of screamo stuff. North Lane. Like a lot of people don't really know about North Lane, but North Lane's quite good. They're actually a Sydney-based band, so quite cool. Evanescence, gotta acknowledge Evanescence. um, let's see. Escape the Fate, Black Veil Brides. Obviously Linkin Park. I've got crap tons of Linkin Park stuff. Papa Roach, Sum 41, Panic at the Disco, Thousand Foot Crutch, bringing them in. Fallout Boy, Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, Corn.
Oh, they recently played in my where I am now, like
Oh,
visiting.
nice, nice. Oh, Breaking Benjamin. Can't forget about him. Yellow Card, Green Day.
Telecard is good.
We got Disturbed, Blink 182. I'm trying to find more Australian-based rock bands as well, because like there's a lot. I don't really know much about the rock scene, at least in Australia. Like aside from like AC/DC, everyone knows AC/DC, but but it's like, and I think also another one was bloody, what was it? Crap. There's another Australian 90s or 80s band I'm trying to think of, but I'll have to look it up quickly. Let me have a look up Australian 90s bands because like I'll know it once I see it. Australian 80s bands. There's In Excess, that's right, In Excess. Like In Excess was pretty big-ish, like, but the main singer of In Excess kind of had some issues, and then I think passed away in the 90s.
Oh.
But yeah, there's a few Australian bands out there that people would know, but I don't know. In the rock scene at the moment, North Lane's probably one of the only big ones that people might know, but because they do a lot of screamo stuff. But when it comes to other stuff, like the Australians are more, I guess, popular in the pop scene, really. And there's like a big rap band as well, or rap group, 1-4, and also Kid Laroi. But I think in the pop scene, there's Sia, and there's another one. Like, there's the other one that made the song Dance Monkey. So, so there's a few Australian artists that are pretty popular. Like 5 Seconds of Summer was a big band from Australia in the early 2010s. But other than that, like it's very rare to find an Australian artist that gets really big mainstream. Like you sort of come across it every once in a while, like every few years, you'll see a big Australian artist come up in the scene. I think Australians are more popular as actors though, but like you get more popular Australian actors and directors, but music scene, it's on the occasion you see a good Australian artist pop up and go mainstream. Like I think in the early 2010s as well, Guy Sebastian came up a bit. Like he did a song with I think it was called the guy was called Loop Fiasco or something, and they made the song Battle Scars. But yeah, like but there are some really good underrated Australian artists out there. And like if you look in like the rock scene or anywhere, and most of the time the rock scene comes out from my way, so it's really good. so so we do get to like see them perform quite a bit like at emo nights and stuff in Sydney, so it's quite good. But more
That's so cool.
you more so see I think you more so see the rap scene really pop off in my area at least. You see the rap scene sort of become a thing. Like it's a lot of drill rap, which I don't really like drill rap, but like my area is kind of known for a bit of the drill rap scene because of like big sort of gang groups and stuff. But then when you go more into the Sydney, it's probably more like the underground rock scene, and it's really cool to see that there's the underground rock scene. But yeah, like other than that, it's just pop artists really that you'll come across in the Australian music scene that grow popular. But you sort of got to do your research a little bit and sort of search around to find the good stuff. Like, and I think it's interesting with the US as well. Like the US music scene, I think there's some areas where like you've got obviously the big country scene music, but you've also got like the I guess the rock scene pop off in some areas. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like I think the US has like a really big diverse section of like music culture. Like Australia's kind of got a bit of it, but it's like because Australia does have a lot of influence from the US, but we sort of I guess we're kind of like the US but 10 years prior. It's probably what Australia is like. We're always like behind with things. We're kind of like tracking behind where we're like kind of following what you did like but 10 years prior to now. Like it's like Australian internet. Like probably 10 years behind the rest of the world, but we'll catch up. We'll catch up one day. Like or at least the music scene is a bit more diverse, I think, in the US than here. But you do see some good unique stuff here though, on occasion. Like but it's like if anyone ever does come to Australia, it's like you'll find that Australians are probably either very blunt and will talk to you very bluntly, or they'll just like crack a joke with you all the time. And sometimes the jokes can be a little bit out there. So it's like so that's probably a bit of a warning to anyone that comes to Australia. Like we it's like we'll joke a lot and sometimes we can be quite I guess blunt with our jokes. It's like we'll probably make fun of you quite a bit. It's like I remember there was this American comedian. I think like I don't know if it was yeah. What was his name? It was I don't think I can pronounce the last name, but it's like Gabriel Iglesias or something.
Oh.
Like I remember he was
Yes.
I saw a video with him and I love his stuff. He's quite funny. Like he he was talking about how he went to Australia one time and they were like laughing at him and stuff and it was so funny. And I was like cuz like they were laughing at him because well, he's obviously because they people knew he was not from Australia. So they're like, "Oh yeah, American guy, let's make fun of him a bit." It's like oh like saying like he could float in water and stuff and I'm like oh okay but and then like he goes to a pub or something and he tries to drink Foster's and thinks he's fitting in with the culture by drinking Foster's beer and it's like no, don't drink Foster's, that's the worst thing you could do. Like because in Australia, I think a lot of people hate Foster's. They don't like Foster's, even though it's one of the most well known beers in Australia. No one likes Foster's. So
That's that's how like Budweiser and Bud Light is here. Like everyone
yeah,
knows what it is, but everyone agrees that it's the worst thing
yeah,
in existence.
yeah. So it's like don't drink Foster's when you come here. Probably drink something more like a let's say like a Jim Beam or drink a probably I don't know, like a VB or something. VB's more known in Australia, but and VB is probably more widely accepted. But don't drink a Foster's because everyone will just look at you and go, "What the hell are you drinking that for?"
That's the only reason why they keep it there
Yeah,
for to shame people.
yeah, probably, probably. And then, but like Australians can get pretty rowdy in a bar. It's just common for Australians to be the rowdy bunch of people. Like I think I remember at one point some of my friends were like were like one of my friends was going away with his family to the US and and their family was the rowdiest bunch on the plane because Australians are very rowdy people. We like to talk and chat a lot. We're very open. So like if you ever come here, an Australian will probably chat to you. They're not gonna just ignore you. They're probably gonna chat to you if you're foreign and go, "Oh hey, like did you need anything?" Like we're just like we're like the more communicative people. But it's like it's funny because like we're the most probably friendliest of welcoming people, but we're also the rowdiest and make a lot of jokes at you. Like we'll make fun of your culture big time in Australia. And sometimes maybe it might overstep the line a little bit. Like it's probably gonna happen. Like because Australians like it's kind of acknowledged that the humor in Australia is probably a lot more racist humor. Probably.
Oh.
Yeah, it's yeah, but usually when it comes to racist humor here, it's like it's just common jokes. Like everyone sort of accepts it here because it's just been ingrained into the culture. So we do make a lot of jokes and sometimes we do make a lot of racist jokes, but it's usually done in a particular way. It's like if we've got friends, because a lot of our friends are quite diverse culturally as well. So that's the other thing that people forget about Australia is as much as Australia's like British colony and all that sort of stuff, it's a much more racially diverse place as well these days than what it was 50 years ago. Like we have like lots of Italian culture, Maltese culture, we even have Middle Eastern culture, Asian culture. There's so many different types of people here. So a lot of people all like to make jokes at each other about their culture. It's
Hmm.
it's so funny because like we all sort of take jabs at each other in a funny way and everyone just laughs. Like if we usually only do it though if people are comfortable with it. So it's like we would sort of talk and kind of get to know each other and what jokes are acceptable and what's not. So sometimes we poke jabs at, like, one of my friends is Lebanese, so sometimes we poke jokes at Lebanese culture, but they poke jokes right
Mm,
back at us. So it's like joke for joke. And it's not like, I guess, in a lot of other countries where racist jokes can be seen as racist jokes. It's kind of
yeah,
different. But at the same time, yeah, there is still some of the systemic problems with some of those things. Like, we acknowledge that too. Like, but I think in Australian culture, it's a bit more difficult probably for an Australian to probably go to another country where it's not as accepted. Like like in some countries they might be a bit more sensitive around that sort of stuff, but an Australian's usually probably a lot more, I guess, relaxed minded on that sort of stuff. So
mm,
so I think that's one of the issues that sometimes Australians run into and get sort of known to be as a really racist country and all this sort of stuff. Like, people say it all the time. Like, people go, "Oh, Australia is such a racist country," and it's like, well, in our past, especially, yes, we were. But the other thing that's happened over time is Australia's become more multicultural in recent time. So I think that because of the rapid change, maybe some things systemically happened differently than other countries. Like, systemically, it's kind of more accepted here as as a joke than as a racist sort of joke. Like, it's a hard thing to work out though. So, like, for foreigners that sort of come to Australia, and you see everyone make jokes about culture and make jokes about different things, it's like, whoa, okay, what's going on? But then you sort of kind of get to understand it more. It's it's weird. Like, it's really bizarre because, like, everyone I know here, no matter what race or anything, just makes jokes about different cultures that sometimes definitely can overstep the line, but most people just joke about it. It's weird. Like, I don't know how to best put it into words because you'd have to kind of understand the Australian mindset a lot more to kind of know what it's like. Like like a lot of my friends are all diverse different groups of people, but we all just take jabs at each other's culture because we laugh about it. It's it's kind of like
yeah,
it's kind of like here, like, you know how, like, there's the joke around, like, Asians can't drive. There's the joke that Asians can't drive. There's the joke that um there's the joke here that bloody Australian, like, that Asians get a lot of, like, that the expectations of Asian parents are much more. It's there's a lot. It's like there's a lot of these different things that you sort of see these jokes on a daily basis, but imagine that times 10. It's Australian culture.
yeah,
Like, imagine it times 10, but everyone taking jabs at everyone's culture in a funny way, and they take it as a funny joke. Whereas in other countries, it's probably taken a lot more offensively. It's it's such a weird thing, I think, for a lot of other countries to kind of see that in the same way. Like, but I think the other thing is that a lot of other countries, because of the systemic issues around some of these things, probably at the same time can't joke really much at all. It's because it's kind of seen as, well, hey, you're taking jabs at those particular people. And because they're using it in a negative sort of connotation as well, like, they're using it in a way that actually hurts someone.
Yeah.
Whereas whereas in Australian culture, it's kind of used in the opposite. It's kind of used as like, oh, like it's kind of like, oh mate, like, oh, your parents bloody do this, this, and this, and they laugh about it, and it's like, oh yeah, but your parents do this, this, and this, like, so it's kind of changed. It's kind of like mixing humor with like mixing comedy and humor with racism, but in a funny jab joke way that kind of gets seen as funny, but kind of at the same time isn't. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's a strange thing. Like Australians and New Zealanders, we take jokes at each other all the time, and I kind of noticed because like my ancestry is British and New Zealander, so we joke about the UK all the time. We joke about New Zealand all the time, and we take jokes at those countries for what they do. It's it's bizarre. Like it's like not only jokes about heritage, but jokes about like calling them nicknames and all this sort of stuff. It's weird. Like because with Europeans, like when it came to after World War II, Australia accepted a bunch of like Italian and Maltese migrants. So we have a large Italian Maltese population in historical sort of sense. So a lot of parents are Maltese and Italian. So a lot of people make jokes about them and kind of go, and we have a term that we call them here. Like but it's used as a joke and everyone widely accepts it as a joke. Whereas other countries would probably not accept it. It's it's a weird ingrained mindset in Australia. I don't know where it came from, but all I know is it's just been commonly accepted here. Like that's all I know. And then when we started hearing about people like let's say probably 10 years ago, when we started hearing about people saying, "Oh, you can't say these particular things." Australians were probably going, "Well, we've been doing that for years. Like we've been doing that for years here as a joke and now it's not accepted? Like what's going on?" But we can see both ends of it. Like we can see the negative connotations around a lot of these things. But in Australia, it's so different. Like
Um,
so I don't know. It's hard to kind of adjust mindsets
yeah.
when you're ingrained in a culture that just jokes and jabs for fun on people's culture. Whereas in other countries it's like, okay, you can't do that. Or if you do that, it's seen as racist. Like but like I don't sort of stand out and say, "Hey, you should go and do it." Definitely don't. But I would say I would say like if you've got friends that are like okay with a bit of I guess cultural humor and they're genuinely okay with taking like cultural humor, then yeah, you can have fun with your friends and do that, but don't expect everyone to be accepting of that. Like,
Yeah. Um,
yeah.
unfortunately, I do have to go.
All right,
It's
that's all
actually
good.
gotten like super late.
Yeah, I reckon it's
But
probably time to call it too. But yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's been fun. Like we've talked about many different things, and I'm sure that at some point again we'll probably have a follow up episode sometime down the line where we'll talk about more different things. Like
Yeah, I would love to.
yeah, like it's like we're only at the fifth episode in the series, but I'm sure like probably by the time episode 20 comes, we'll probably have a follow up by then. But
For sure.
yeah, like there's going to be many different things we can still talk about. Like we could talk more about our own cultures, probably. That would be funny to talk about and sort of, I guess, learn more about each other's cultures. Because, like, for
That'd be
me,
pretty cool.
like Australian culture, it's Australian culture is very unique, but at the same time, it's very similar to a lot of other countries' cultures too. Like, it's very similar to like British and American cultures, but it also has its own, I guess, flair. Australian culture has its own flair, and I'm sure that like your culture would probably have a lot of interesting stuff to it that would be interesting to learn about. But
Yeah.
yeah, but we'll definitely follow up on some of this stuff in a later episode, and I'm sure that everyone would be wanting to know, I guess, about a lot of these different things. But yeah, but
Thank you
we'll
for having me.
no problem. Yeah, we'll end it here. So thank you guys so much for joining today's podcast. I hope you guys have all enjoyed listening in on all the random stuff we've talked about. Like there was probably points where we've kind of rambled a bit too much into some topics, but I think that's just natural in discussion though. Like I think there's going to be points where we're going to be rambling about particular things and yeah. But yeah, we'll end it here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and it's going to be interesting the next episode because I'm sure some of you guys will want to know who's going to be in the next episode, and I'll actually be announcing that very soon. So, yeah. But of course, thank you for coming on. I hope you enjoyed chatting. So,
Yes.
yeah.
It was really
So,
fun being here.
yeah. Like, it's just chill chat discussion. But, yeah. But either way, we'll end it here. So, hopefully you guys have enjoyed, and we'll see you all next time. Peace.